Guys, welcome back to the next Hushlife podcast.
The next or the first one? It's been a minute.
We're in between. We struggled being consistent with the podcast. We did a poll the last time we put up a podcast, which was 6 months ago.
It's been a while.
Maybe longer. And we asked if it's possible, would you guys want us to not only do an audio version, but a video and audio version? And overwhelming response was yes, audio and video, which is a no-brainer, obviously. So this is our first actual attempt at doing both. Mateo's behind the lens and behind the audio, so we're going to see how this goes. But welcome back. I'm going to say that. We've had a podcast in the past, so welcome back to this podcast. Brian, you want to introduce this podcast?
Yeah, this is our first podcast we've done in 6 months. Oh, man, we've had some good ones, I feel like, and then we just, we haven't committed to it whatsoever. So hopefully that'll change moving forward. I think EC Money has expressed some interest in, doing a few more. I know Casey's done a handful kind of on his own, and maybe this is the new beginnings where we actually commit. There's a lot of things we could talk about if you just within our own group, and then we have a lot of great friends and partners we work with, and all kinds of cool guests we could have on. It could go endless if we actually took it. I wish we had an area we could create like a true studio. I think that would make it a bit easier for the filming. Obviously for the recording, we're kind of just a mobile unit right now. We did upgrade some of our system here for this specific podcast because we got a lot of guys today here joining us. And so forgive us in advance if we get a little carried away and maybe talk over each other. There could be, there's a lot of alpha personalities in this particular room. And so, yeah, that's where we're at. But a lot has happened in 6 months. We're in June, middle of June. We got a lot of things that the hunt season's starting to materialize for us. Hopefully some of you listening have had luck in the draws. All of the draw results are, I believe, pretty much out. Arizona just hit yesterday for deer and pronghorn. So the fall is starting to formalize. I don't say we have an exact plan, but we're getting closer and dates are getting set up. Things are happening. We've got some, I think we got some good stuff, right? Like we pulled a couple good ones.
Yeah.
Some real good ones.
Couple once in a lifetimers. We'll cut one once in a lifetimer for sure. And that's exciting. I don't know if we're going to talk about it yet, but we'll get into it later.
Almost didn't make the podcast because we wanted to set up trail cams on the way here.
I almost had Nathan convinced to pull over and set trail cams on the way down here.
It's that time of year for the trail cams. We're going to be, big moisture year across the West, which I think is exciting for some of these Western hunts. There could be some great antler growth for the deer that made it. A little harder on the mule deer this year, but certainly the elk looking to be in pretty good shape. So we got that going on. We've been doing some traveling around. I'm sure we'll talk through some of that stuff. We announced some pretty incredibly exciting news a couple weeks back, and I know we're going to dive into a lot of that today on the entrepreneurial side of things. We've seemed to lean into a lot of business-based conversations on the podcast that we have done. I know we all enjoy it. We've talked to a lot of different owners and founders and entrepreneurs throughout kind of the last couple of years, and we'll probably do more of it. This format gives us a chance to actually dive into some of that stuff. We get asked quite a bit over the years, how did we get started? How do you break into the industry? How do you turn like your hobby or your passion into like a career? So endless opportunities to talk about that. But today we're going to dive into probably all kinds of good stuff. And man, I'm excited to get things kicked off. EC, where's your head at? What are you thinking?
Oh man, I was kind of spacing off, to be honest. I
kind of saw that.
I was sitting there going, all right, like you gotta, with this headset on, you gotta listen to what's in your ear, but my mind was going elsewhere as you were talking about tags and, a few things have been going on. I'm like, yeah, moose shed. Me and Nathan went moose shed hunting. That's been going on. And so anything, I was just starting to like wander off into space of like hunting season and the trips we've been on lately. But yeah, excited to have the podcast on. We're in this little nook in my shop here, which I always kind of thought would make a pretty fun little podcast spot, right? It's not built for a podcast studio, but it's a cool little space. We're crammed in here with some good friends and some business partners, and excited to talk about a lot of stuff, especially the Ollin snapshot kit and everything that's going on there with Nathan and Jordan. We've got Isaac to the right of me. And this is a pretty cool group. There's a lot of history in this group right here.
For anybody that gets invited to the podcast in this shop in the future, get here early enough so you're not in the corner where you're trying to awkwardly decide if you want to turn closer to Eric or if you want to turn closer to Jordan, which way to sit. So I might be moving awkwardly throughout the podcast, but
yeah, I could read that. I've been there where you're kind of like, my legs are weird. Am I supposed to go left or right? No, but yeah, we finally got this crew together, and I'll tell you what, between all our schedules and travel, it's hard to get this group that you see right here in one place at one time. So I'm excited about this podcast because we really don't have a script for any of this, similar to our YouTube videos. We got no questions to ask each other. We'll just let it roll and get conversation started, and we'll just take it wherever it goes.
I mean, okay, so we talked some history here. Let's kind of roll the clock back real quick, put a little context and perspective of the folks that are sitting around this thing, because it's pretty cool. I know Casey and Nathan were talking about some of it on the drive up, and sometimes you lose sight of what that looks like. But Casey, you want to start off telling, just I guess kind of from your perspective, and we can keep it quick, but let's get people up to speed of the people in this room, how we all kind of came together.
Yeah, I'm terrible, absolutely terrible with dates. So I couldn't remember like when any of this actually happened. It was years ago, but me and I was telling Nathan about like how me and Eric came together back in, I think, like 2013, or no, probably 2012 was the first time I met Eric. He was working for a different company. I introduced myself to him at the Hunt Expo and just kind of told him like, hey man, I know you guys do DVDs and you have this online like chat forum and all that, but like I'm trying to do this YouTube thing. And immediately Eric was like, dude, that is what I want to do. Like DVDs are dying, like digital's where it's at. So me and Eric became friends and kind of helped each other out for a few years, and then was fortunate to bring Eric onto the channel, and that it was in 2014, I believe. And in the meantime, I had met Brian through a mutual friend on an elk hunt in New Mexico, and Brian immediately started helping me like with all the stuff I couldn't do, like put spreadsheets together. I was telling Nathan, Brian told me after the first time we hunted, he's like, dude, you should be getting free gear, at least free gear from all these companies. Like, who do you want to work with? Send me a list. So I sent him a list of some companies I would want to work with, and he sent me back this spreadsheet of like all my analytics and my numbers, and he's like, does this look good? I'm like, dude, I don't know what the hell this is. So he sent it out to a bunch of sponsors, and that's really how we started working with some of the sponsors we have today, like First Lite and Vortex,
Camp Chef.
And then 2014 is kind of when the three of us came together and started working on this thing as like a business. And that was this first year in 2014. Is that when Mountain Ops launched?
Yeah, so Mountain Ops was in the works in 2013 and then fully launched July of 2014. So we're in our 9th year now. And craziest thing there was like when we were starting and Hush was starting, Eric was actually one of our first employees at Mountain Ops in customer service.
Oh, yeah.
And was on the phones. So he had 2 jobs. First he came and worked, and he was working for Lifetime Fitness.
Yeah.
Selling memberships. So then I was like, bro, come over here and like sell supplements. He's like, done. He's like, but I'm also got this thing that's going on the side. And so there was like...
So that was the conversation. I couldn't remember if I had it with you or Casey, and I was like, dude... Well, so what happened was me and Eric were putting together a movie premiere to show the night before the expo in 2015. And so I was down in Salt Lake cutting the videos with Eric, and we went and had dinner with Brian. And, me and Eric were talking about like how we could work together. Like I was like, maybe you should start your own YouTube channel. We could like collaborate. And we went to dinner, and Brian was like, all right, listen, guys, this is what needs to happen. Eric, you have what Casey needs. Casey, you have what Eric needs. Bring him onto the channel. And I remember like, oh yeah, duh. Like,
yeah, both of us were like, well, I thought of that.
Like,
I looked at you're like, hey, why didn't you say anything? I was
Yeah.
like, well, that's your baby. It's your side hustle. You're like, no, that's an awesome idea. Like that. Heck yeah.
Well, what's crazy though is that night I drove home that night, and your brother Casey called me. He goes, dude, I just had dinner with Tim Burnett, and he goes, I know what you need to do. Me and Tim had a long talk about this. You need to bring Eric onto the channel. And I was like, dude, did you just talk to Eric? And he's like, no. I'm like, did you talk to B-Mac? He goes, no. Why? I'm like, we literally just had dinner and we came up with this idea. He's like, yeah, it's a no-brainer. But at the time, I remember like I was very concerned about being able to pay Eric a full-time wage to run the thing.
Yep.
Because I was doing a separate YouTube channel where it was taking up most of my time. And then I remember talking to you, and you're like, well, let's bring Eric on Mountain Ops part-time and Hush part-time, and we'll pay him a full-time wage together.
Yep.
And that's how all this worked out.
It's literally how it all came together. And so Eric would be in the office. And here's the funny thing, too, about your guys' movie premiere, too, was that I remember at that time, Trophy Hunter magazine had you and Fireball on the front. And then you're like, see ya. Like deuces, like print is dead, even though that's how you guys were selling it at SHOT Show together.
Selling
Literally,
against
these
each
two
other.
are walking into these booths with these businesses and are like, hey guys, so I've got a magazine. Okay. So editorial, we can do an ad, full color, print. Okay. Nice pages, great, like 80-pound, paper. Like this stuff is glossy. You're going to love it. And then Casey steps in and goes, okay, so print is dead. I do YouTube. This is how we're going to help your brand expand.
We're going to do digital.
And didn't you say you were just like, as you two were like doing these, pitches, you're just like, dang, his pitch
Oh,
is
the
so
whole
much
time
better.
I was sitting there going, man, Casey's got a way better pitch than me. And he's just like so much more confident. And like, plus his, ideas so much cooler, like digital content.
Little insight. Before Eric came onto the channel, he was running a magazine. And
Yes.
so me and him decided to meet up in Vegas and go to SHOT Show. And he's like, I have all these meetings like planned out with different companies. You should come along and give me your pitch.
It was you, Casey, my brother, and Casey.
Yep.
And you were pitching the magazine.
Yep.
Casey was trying to pitch the Zealous Outdoors digital like Facebook thing that we were doing.
Wasn't
and then
he-
we were doing Zulu 6. So we were trying to sell, he was trying to sell, marketing and advertising. And then you're selling YouTube. And the three of you were like just going out. And you guys stayed at Circus.
Oh, it was a dump.
Dude, I remember it's like the first I've met Eric and hung out with him a few times, but like I remember getting to the hotel and I knew Eric was like into fitness and stuff, and he had brought with him a cooler full of the Fireball meat, and he had a George Foreman grill.
Oh,
that he had,
yeah.
like the first night he was trying to grill up
I'd
steaks.
never heard that.
He was trying to grill up steaks in the hotel, and I was like, I'm like, I'm taking you to dinner, bro. This is weird.
Yeah, I do remember. I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
But that's the first time I met Casey. Casey was actually getting ready to leave, and I was supposed to have a pass, but I didn't. So he's like, here, just take mine. I'm like, oh, sweet. It says my name on it. Casey from Zulu 6. Yep. Anyway, yeah, so that was like 2013, I think.
Yeah, so that was like 13, and then in 14, we launched. You were doing both, and then it was like in 15, that was when we fired you, and full hire at Hush, and you guys did your launch, and then we did the first little tiny 20 by 20 booth at the Western Hunt Expo where we had Fireball in the corner. It was basically Hush's corner, and then we had that big truck we did with the Diesel Brothers and a screen, and then we just had like 2 posts of supplements, and then shirts and hats, and we were just
Giving it all away.
giving it all
Yeah.
away.
Yeah,
I remember
Trading
Casey
people.
and I got together, and we were like, okay, what are we going to do? Because we were like, like you're going into your first show and you're just like, I don't know if we're going to sell any of this. I don't know if anybody wants what we want or what we have. We're like, let's just do this. Let's just do half off if they put it on right now. So if they got a hat, half off the hat if they'll give us their hat and put ours on, or a shirt. And dude, it worked. Like you saw orange bags all over that hall. You saw shirts and so people might have bought a couple supplements, but they're just like, dude, sick logo, sick shirt. Like let's half off, like done.
Going back, like if you guys have been to the Western Hunt Expo in the last 4 or 5 years, you've seen how big like the Mountain Ops booth is, the Hush booth. That year literally was like a 10 by 20.
It was.
It had a diesel truck in it with a TV
Which took up
stand.
the entire booth.
Yeah, that
So
took
we
up-
were actually all out in the aisles. I think Ray Crow was actually pretty upset because he's like, hey, by fire laws, y'all need to be inside your borders. And we're
Yeah.
like, well, Fireball's antlers are not going to sit inside this. Pedestals out here. Y'all are hanging on the outside. I mean, it was.
And, yeah,
Fireball
me
creating
and
a fire
Eric,
hazard.
Like, the night
yeah.
before we launched the movie premiere, it did really well, and we were kind of surprised. Like, dude, we sold out 2 movies, so we're like, all right, let's go to the expo. Like, what are we gonna do? We didn't have shirts or hats to sell. We just went to the Mountain Ops booth and like hung out, and you guys were like having arm wrestling contests and
Yes.
stuff.
We had Jared, who was like a professional arm wrestler, brought his whole
yeah.
setup. Remember that?
Yep.
Yeah, that wrecked my bicep because I was just joking around with him, and then I was actually trying to be serious, and it didn't work out for me too well.
Yeah, there's way too many videos on the internet of people breaking their arm for me to ever want to like
Do it.
go
Full send
all
on
in.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not about to do that.
So what's crazy too is like at that point in time, Hush's corner to the booth was a TV screen on repeat of the videos that they showed the night before, and then the Firebowl mount.
Yep.
And then that was it. We didn't have merchandise at the
There was
time.
a table, and I think we brought some random stuff, but it was gone like that.
Like some DVDs
And so, like-
and
No.
So, yeah,
I think some of the trophy hunter magazines were there too. Eric's like, I gotta get rid of these. These are in my house. Nobody's buying them.
I still have a box of those. I get a request every now and then, someone who wants one.
Dude, yeah. You should do a reprint. I guarantee
be
you,
flinging those.
you would kill it with a reprint. Maybe frame them too. So people put them in their houses because nobody's gonna read them.
but back then we didn't have merchandise yet. Casey was paying Eric out of his own personal account because we made no money. We didn't have any partners yet. Did acquire a few free items, which was pretty exciting back then. And around 2013 or 14, Casey finally started getting a few, free swag goodies, but by no means there was no revenue being generated. So pretty creative way for Eric to become full-time would be him doing a little bit of Mountain Ops, him doing a little bit of Hush, and just with the whole notion of, dude, take this thing and run with it, banging out consistent content across all platforms. Act like you own it. And I know there was a transition there when Eric was kind of trying to feel comfortable with like, God, it's Casey's baby. How do I jump into this?
First few videos are like, who's this guy? We're here for Casey. Who is this guy? Like, what are we watching?
Because it was Hushin with Levere.
It was Hushin with
Hushin
Levere.
with Levere, So they're
It's
like,
always. I
who's
told
this
Nathan
dude?
that too. Like when you bring somebody on new, like we do this with our camera guys. Like it's not. It's like nerve wracking, I guess. Like there's an audience gonna love this person, but the first couple of videos you cut, I remember you were like sending me the drafts, and finally I was like, dude, you cut just as well as I do. Like just put it up. Like it's fine. And we've noticed that with camera guys over the years. Like they come in, and I guess it's a big responsibility, but they're so nervous about putting stuff up and like how it looks like. And finally you just have to tell them like, Maddie, run this thing like it's yours. Like run it like you stole it. We trust you. But yeah, there's a lot of that going on. And then, the audience, which is cool about our business, is we're all so different. We all have such different personalities that maybe somebody that, watched it for me, like my personality, but then you started putting up content and there was people that came because they liked what you were doing and the way you presented yourself. And same with BMAC or any of the camera guys we bring on. Everyone's a little bit different and it brings in a little bit different demographic for sure.
Yeah, and I know time's not going to permit to dive into all the details, but I was fortunate to hear a little bit more of the backstory on the drive over here. And one of my favorite things about it is just like how these relationships were formed and the whole story behind Hush and Mountain Ops and what happened there and how we all came together. It's just something you can't make up. Like, you just can't make that up. It's hard to replicate what happened. And one of the things that I learned on the way over here that was new to me, because these guys have launched podcasts in the past telling about their story and how it came to be. I did not realize how pivotal BMAC was in laying the foundation and the structure of getting Hush to what it was. And that was like really cool to me because I knew, what was it, 2016, 17? When did you come on full time to Hush again?
18?
Casey and I both came on full time in 18. So from 13 when I first started helping him to 18, we just never took a dime from the business, put everything back into it, helped Eric have the full-time salary. So he was the guy that was running the show, literally creating all the content. And I was just trying to be in the back burner, just working on how do we turn this from like a hobby into like something that could actually sustain paying all of us a full time. And we had a lot of conversations over the years. There's one that resonates that Casey and I had on the way back from one of our Colorado semi-live series in 2015. We had just, started launching a little bit of merchandise. And so it's still pretty new. We didn't have a huge following on YouTube by any means, but there was good momentum behind the semi-live series. And we literally were talking on the drive home. Do you think this is something that could actually like turn into maybe a full-time opportunity for all of us? And Casey's like, I mean, dude, I don't know, maybe, but who knows? Like, who knows where this thing will go? It was so new still. The other interesting backstory is in the hunting space in particular, this was such a foreign concept. Jordan mentioned it earlier, but like print advertisement was a huge component. I would say like
print and outdoor channel,
outdoor television,
or sportsman's channel. Like, so all these traditional ways that people consumed content were still vibrant at the time and still relevant.
Absolutely. Every company that we talked to, their marketing spend was on print and television. they might, digital to them was like doing a banner ad on a hunting forum like Monster Muleys or something like that. That was like the cutting edge. So when we walked through the door of a lot of these people and said, hey, we have this YouTube channel, we're dedicating everything to hunting. We also have like Facebook. I mean, Instagram was barely getting off the ground in 2012, 13, 14. It's still very new. Everybody just looked at us like we were crazy.
Not everybody.
A lot of us.
A lot of people.
A lot of people.
And then there's Isaac.
I know a guy. I didn't think that.
What's your perspective on it?
It was fun watching everything, the way it kind of evolved from the DVD game to the Facebook, and the teams, the hunting teams together, and then slowly moved to the whole YouTube side of things, because I met Jordan back, before any of you guys did.
We were way back in the early Easton days.
Yeah, so give your little your backstory, like your hunting, how you broke into the industry and some of the places you've worked.
Well, so if you check I guess you guys didn't do very many podcasts. So what? One of the last 5 I was on then. Probably.
Yeah.
how old
like
is
a year
this
and
guy?
a half ago.
I am the old guy here,
Dude, Grandpa Isaac. Old
So
G-Paw.
myself, I started working at Badlands. Worked Badlands 5 years, then went to Easton, worked Easton at 7 years. And noticing that the hunting industry was so far behind, because when I was at Badlands, I remember my big pitch to my boss at the time was, hey, Badlands needs a MySpace page. We're totally doing MySpace Badlands.
We need a theme song.
That's what it is.
We
That's
need a
what we're
theme
doing.
song on our page.
And I was so pumped. I got the Badlands MySpace page rolling.
We got to have Tom as our first friend, obviously.
And then from there, when I went to Easton, I met these 2 backstreet looking boys who were like doing marketing, and I'm
Giving away free stuff.
And I'm like, who are these pretty boys? And they try to talk to me about marketing. I'm like, guys, get out of here. Jordan's brother Casey would come in my office, and I would chase him out all the time. Like, dude, get out of here. You don't know what you're talking about, man.
He literally repelled us. Like every time we're like, everybody would say like, you guys would love Isaac. He's a great guy. So we'd like try to build a relationship with Isaac. Isaac would be like, get out of my office. Like you guys don't. It's like that scene from Parks and Rec when Ron Swanson goes to Home Depot and the guy walks up and he's like, I know more than you. And they walk up. That's what it's like going into his office.
Yes.
What did you do at Easton at the time?
So Easton, they hired me from Badlands. Easton started making Easton Outfitters. So they started doing backpacks, and then they bought Core 4 Element, and they had Easton Outdoors.
And we had Mackenzie Targets.
Yep, and then they had Mackenzie Targets.
And then we had still Easton and Beeman. So we had at the time 5, 6 brands that at the time Shane Michelli went out and was on a mission to increase revenue at Easton. So Greg Easton was like, here's some dollars to go make some acquisitions. So literally in a span of like 3 or 4 months, converged Core 4 purchase, Delta Mackenzie Target. They sold off Muzzy Broadheads. They brought on OEM, and then we brought on Outfitter. Yep. And then we still had the Easton and Beeman like archery shaft line.
Correct. Yep. And so I was part of the outdoor side, the Outfitter side. So I was the sales manager there. Sales manager, marketing, social media, all that, pro staff guys. And so from there I kind of just watched again the game change as Jordan and his brother were talking about Facebook. Facebook was the thing at the time, but the hunting industries, I swear, they were 5 years behind, because when Instagram hit and everyone started going to Instagram and YouTube, I noticed that's when the hunting industry started going to Facebook. And so they're so far behind on it, but now you've seen it catch up. But before, I'd go to the ATA show, and that's when the crush hit with Lee and Tiffany. And I'll never forget big stitched jeans, the hot blonde coming into the booth with the husband waiting out in the, in the hall saying, hey, I got this idea for this TV show and this is what we're going to do. And it was like, and we got a spot on the Sportsman's Channel. And see, I was naive back then, because even when I was at Badlands, I didn't realize you have to pay to be on the Sportsman's Channel.
Yep.
I thought if you were a good enough Sportsman's Channel, picked you up.
Yep.
And no.
That's how backward our industry was.
Yes.
It still is.
You got to realize, I had a guy come in and ask me for $35,000 sponsorship for his show that premiered at 2 a.m. on the Sportsman's Channel. So when I saw what you guys were doing, I remember meeting with Eric for the magazine, but I've known Eric for years, seeing him at all the hunting expos, God, I don't know how long, man. You're always walking around in King's camo.
Yeah, early on.
Yeah. And then seeing, what you guys were doing, putting it up, I mean, I was jumping on board, but a lot of these, industry, I call them legacy companies that have been around for a while, they refuse to kind of change, and they stick again with the print and everything. Cause BMAC, we've been in meetings together. Many times at Easton, and Easton, great company, but they're still doing a lot of traditional marketing, and now they're trying to break into the more digital side, but
which it's 2023.
2023.
Like, dude,
yes,
You
it
kind
is.
of missed.
So
yeah.
Well, I think you had a good insight on digital media because of your son. And I remember having a conversation, one of the first conversations I had with you. I met Junior for the first time, which, dude, he was such a little kid. But you were telling me, you were like, dude, you guys are like his heroes. Like, he didn't grow up watching the Sportsman's Channel. Like, he doesn't even know who those, like, Lee and Tiffany people are. Like, he knows you guys. He knows the Zach Griffiths, the Dallas Haymeyers, like,
correct
people that were doing it.
He met, he met Cameron Haynes. He met Fred Eichler. Those are Dad's friends.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it. He asked Eric for an autograph, and Eric said no. He came back. He was like, Eric told me I couldn't have an autograph, Dad.
Yeah.
And I remember going out with Eric. I'm like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
I thought I was messing with him.
Up at Total Archery Challenge, I'm like, but dude, it's just my friend. Like, he's just our friend, because we're so close. And I didn't even think about it. Like, he really wanted an autograph. I'm like, is this some kind of prank?
So then after I told him, Eric went and got him and walked him around. Junior comes up to me and goes, yo, Dad, Eric just came and got me and asked my opinion on hats and T-shirts, and we walked around and we talked about this. It was so cool.
That's
Oh, yeah, that was the year of the 50-50 hat.
Yeah.
When it popped off.
Yep.
He got to see all the samples,
that's
showing
cool.
Junior all the mock-ups and
But
stuff.
that's the hard part when you work in the industry. You kind of get jaded from everything because it's always thrown at you on a regular basis. And it was my son and then also my son-in-law that were telling me about your guys' videos. Because for a while there, you kind of check out. You'll agree, Jordan, once you got into the industry for a bit, everyone coming at you with the same cookie cutter thing. And then you kind of get bored of watching it. But then I started listening to these guys, and they were talking about what you guys were doing, like the Zach Griffiths. And then, of course, meeting Jordan and those guys. Because everybody contributes to me to getting my son in the hunting industry and the path that he's taken. But I'm a part of it, but a big part was all of you guys, really, because, all you guys took him under your wing. He got to watch you. He was able to relate to you guys. Because to me, the other guys now, at the time, they were Dad's friends. He even met, like John Dudley from Knock On early on. He's over there working at Shills, and he comes home and he goes, hey, Dad, so do you know John Dudley? I go, John Dudley knows me. and I go, son, go look in your little binder upstairs of all your autographed pictures. To like those Cameron Haynes, Fred Eichler, and he goes up there. Oh wow, this one from John Dudley from 2009. Yes, son, you met him already, but it was you guys are the ones that kind of broke him in to more of the stuff. So that digital side was really big.
And well, you and I talked real recently about this. Just at the time as you were at Easton, and I was there, Casey was there, even Joel Pilcher, the three of us were there. And that's actually what spun off and created Zulu 6 was after we had been at Easton, and Easton came and offered all three of us jobs and said, we want you guys all to run these brands for us and help us. Because at the time, how many people were in Easton's marketing department? We had like Gary, Clint. No, he's not.
No, me.
You,
Me,
you were
and one other guy. That's why
that's three people running Easton marketing.
Whoa.
And it's a lot
They
of
brought
brands.
us in to basically say, okay, Jordan, you're going to run Core 4. Casey, you're going to run Delta McKenzie. Joel, you're going to run Easton Shafts, Beeman and Easton. And then we had his brother Ty Pilcher. You're going to run Outfitter.
Yes.
Each one of us owned a brand and were responsible for building all the assets, the collateral, and running the social media. And like, so we worked as a team to do that and had Gary as overlord telling us like what he wanted. And then it came time where Shane Michelli pieced out and left this mess at Easton, to be completely transparent and honest. And Shane will probably hear this podcast, not like it, but that is the truth. And so now Easton is like, what do we do? And so they came to me, Casey and Joel, made us offers. And me and Casey looked at them, we're like, we're making like more money than that just doing it on our own. And I remember the look on their face was like, how? Like, how are you guys doing?
Well,
Is
and then
all the money coming from us? I'm like, no, we've got some side stuff. Like, we come in here and we do the work, and then we have other stuff we're doing, and we're getting paid more than what you're offering. So we left. We went to Perkins. I still remember having French toast, and me, Joel, and Casey all decided to start a firm together and join our firms and created Zulu 6, which then literally connected us into Eric, that then connected us into Casey, that connected us into BMAC, and then the thing that I just want to touch on real quick that BMAC was touching on was we're thinking a decade. It's been a decade. So every 5 years in marketing, in industry, and category, that you have typically a 5-year window that someone can come in and disrupt and really transform or create a new category. Because within 5 years, they've either established themselves as a category king, and then everybody else starts coming and attaching themselves to the category and trying to participate, or they're out of business and they don't succeed. So by a decade, that category king is still sitting on their throne and is still kind of the leader of that category. And so what I love about the convergence of our stories that we've been talking about is, at the time in the industry that I think, Isaac, you did a really good job teeing, was there was no concept of like this digital immersive like experience of like, how do you take video from television and put it on the internet? That is a foreign concept to like everybody in the industry. Like, how do you do that? How do you build nutrition and supplements for like hunters? I thought that's just for gym people. Like, we don't go to the gym. We go outdoors. And it was like these two new categories started at the exact same time, and they were working together, and it was a formidable force that was to be reckoned with. And together, Hush and Mountain Ops are still the category kings of their categories that they started a decade ago. And what's been so cool to see in the industry is all those who have now adopted, late adopters, some were earlier adopters, but have now adopted the practices of Hush and what Hush literally has done to transform the entire industry. Because Hush brought the medium right to the people and brought the brands, products, and opportunities right to the people in a way that was so authentic, so
Educational,
informative, genuine, that the success of Hush, not only from its three founders and owners, is the genuineness of how you guys have continued to deliver content, stick to your 4 pillars, continue to produce, and be a leader and a category king of digital hunting content and YouTube. I mean, that was the thing, is like, you came from the world of what was your brother, you and Shay Carl, you guys came from YouTubers. What's a YouTuber in hunting was like, what is that? And now it's second nature to everyone. They're like, oh yeah, now everybody's looking for who the next up and coming YouTubers are in the space. And what's fascinating to see 10 years later now is how well established Hush is and has established themselves as a premier outlet and content creator and business and enterprise, really, an empire that you guys have built. And that the inspiration, like your son, there are so many stories about so many kids that they don't know who Fred Eichler is. They don't know who Jim Shockey is. They don't know half these guys. Like, if we were at a show,
Chuck Adams.
I'm one of the people that don't know most of these people.
Chuck Adams. I mean, all these guys, Randy Ulmer, like some of these true legends of TV and print could be walking the floor today and probably wouldn't get offered or asked for an autograph. But you go to the Hunt Expo and you see the massive Hush booth and all these really cool displayed animals, all these cool adventures and hunts these three have been on with their entire team. And there's just a line that they have to create this snaked stanchion to get people so that they can at least come. And the cool thing that I love about the Western Hunt Expo and seeing these guys and what they do and they're in their element is I have always told them, I'm like, guys, we got to like build a stage and do something where you guys, and they're like, Jordan, I know we'd love to do that. We'd love to be able to take breaks. We'd love to, what you guys have done at Mountain Ops is cool, but we're going to stand here and we're going to meet and we're going to greet every single person that we can. And that has always like hit me so hard because I'm like, that's such a testament to who these three guys are and like what they've done. And the way that they seriously not only created a category in hunting, but transformed the industry and have really transformed and inspired thousands, hundreds of thousands of hunters today to want to go and pursue, if it is for themselves, to join in becoming part of the industry or having their own channel or having their own page or maybe starting up their own apparel company and just trying to do it too. Like it's entrepreneurial at its core. Like you guys have inspired entrepreneurship to a level that I don't think many people might recognize if they're too close to it. But when you stand back, I've had 3 years now to really step back and really look at the industry in a way that I haven't before. And it's been so incredible to see what you three and your team with Logan and Maddie and some of the guys that have come along with you guys, the ways that aren't here today, but were a part of this, have accomplished. Like it's inspiring.
And the passion that each of them still have in what they're doing. Like that's like
They're
just
talking about the next 10.
Yeah, listening to History on the way up, I could just feel the passion. And Eric and I have been connected for a couple of years, but this shed hunting trip that we just did in remote Alaska was like the first time I was on the ground watching Eric in his element, walking around 40 plus miles and freaking waders, trying to find these moldy pieces of bone on the ground. But like just watching how passionate he was and excited he was to film this, to be able to share with all of you guys. Like to me, that was just like, it's one of the reasons that in my opinion is just set Hush and Eric apart, is he truly wants other people who might not have this opportunity to feel like they are there, to feel like they are in Alaska and they're experience what he's experienced. And he doesn't give a crap about the accolades or the money. He just wants people to be able to feel and experience what he's experiencing. And that's why it's really cool to me to see, you know, what Hush has done, what they're continuing doing, and now that they're taking this platform and they're taking it even to the next level, which is like super, super cool. But yeah, that was a lot of fun for me in Alaska. Like he just kept saying, you know, he'd film a section. He's like, oh, I can't wait to share this with, you know, I can't wait to share this with our audience. And I'm like, dude, he just loves it. Like if he was making $0 doing this, he'd still be doing it. And like,
because that's how he was doing before. he wasn't making any money. And like BMAC talked about, I mean, these two literally said, we'll still have like jobs and we'll make money for like our families. And then we'll just support you. And I think that was so cool in the early days of Hush and like Mountain Ops, when I saw the warehouse and we had makeshift built our own pallet stuff. And you guys had Hush Corner over there, and BMAC could be down there on the laptop running spreadsheets and running stuff. And you'd be there boxing up, and Casey would show up and he'd be like, so what do you need me to do? And it's like, it was so fun.
I think you guys fired me from shipping at one time.
I think Eric was like, dude, just go upstairs and like maybe go do a video. But it was,
you got other strong suits.
Yeah.
Numbers is not one.
Yeah.
But
I could tell on the way over here, I don't remember when that date was. I have no idea.
You don't pay attention to details, you know?
But watching just the unification of the three of you, and I think as all of us have been fortunate, like Isaac said, to know you guys before Hush Days, as Hush Days began, and now the maturity of like a decade of Hush's total existence and dominance, in my opinion. Now looking forward at the next 10 years of what you guys have planned for this and what you guys are going to do is really exciting. And I think as maybe a slight segue into why Nathan's sitting here and what he's doing and how all of us now have come together in the maturity of all of our businesses and entrepreneurial journeys and careers and experience to help a new category be born and a new category king be crowned, essentially, because I'm already there. Like it's just we're coming up on our 1 year anniversary since launch.
Yeah, I didn't even know until you just barely told me. I didn't realize Mountain Ops launched in July, which is exactly when we launched. I didn't even realize that that's when you guys had launched the same.
It's just
same month. Just what,
Summer,
10 years later?
Sun, people are happy.
My
like,
birthday.
Hey, Tracy's birthday. When is your birthday?
27th.
He at least remembers that date.
Yeah.
That's good. You remember your anniversary too? When's your anniversary?
August 16th. 20 years this year.
August 14th,
Dude,
August 15th, right?
15th. I got 15 coming up.
15?
15 years, yeah.
14,
Yeah, not hunters.
15,
See,
and 20?
I'm a hunter. That's why I got April. Married in April, man.
I know.
Definitely didn't plan that,
I
right?
got married in September. That would have been bad.
Yeah. April.
So you can obviously see reflecting back on like the history of stuff, it's pretty deep. There's a lot of cool components to it that
We need a longer podcast.
there's no time limit. I mean, we can go as long as we want, but the reality is
I'm just saying, like, there's so much meat on that bone as far as the stories and the different. I mean, I think one thing that would be fun to do, and I'm just saying maybe in lieu of the desire for Hush to keep doing podcasts, is to maybe we go and we break down the timeline and then kind of go back and really dive into those timelines, those
Do some
experiences, those
subcategories.
stories with those people.
Yeah.
And because
Be sweet.
it's worthy of a book. It really is. And so it either needs to be written or spoken.
I'll have AI write that tonight.
Let's do chat. Can you write
It's funny when you start talking about it. Like, we've told this story, I don't know how many times from like the beginning to where we're at, but when like just me telling Nathan about like some of the backstory, it brings up so many like memories and raw emotions that I forgot about, really.
Yes.
Like when we were sitting in SHOT Show, I haven't thought about that for years.
Yeah.
Even just the challenges, right? Like, dude, figuring out a way to like pay Eric was a challenge.
Yeah.
And we weren't looking for much. It was like, Eric's a pretty minimalistic guy. Like, we just needed something. And so we had a creative way out of that. And then when we first started doing our apparel and launching it, Eric found Eagle Eye, who's been a critical, huge component to how we've grown our merchandise brand, from hats and hoodies and t-shirts and our fulfillment, and they run our customer service. They're literally family. They're a part of our story. They're a huge part of our success.
So, funny story about merchandise. I was telling Nathan this. Like, right before I brought Eric on, I was like talking to you guys, and you guys are like, you should be selling some merchandise. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, even if I just break even, people are willing to pay to wear my brand on their chest or their hat.
free
Like,
advertising?
yeah, let's do it. So you guys set up my website. You guys made up some designs, added some designs, and then we were on a hunt together. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember. I know where you're
And
going
when
with
it
this.
launched, like first 3 days, I wasn't really paying attention to it, but like by day 3 or 4, I started getting messages. Well, somehow in the mix of things, I sent Casey my PayPal account,
Which
and
is just
so
attached to an email.
it's attached to an email. So he goes and puts the PayPal account on the website, and so people are like buying stuff and selling merchandise. I was like, heck yeah! And people were like, hey man, I just got refunded my money. I bought a shirt through PayPal. I just got refunded my money. I'm like, what? Somehow Casey put the wrong PayPal account on. So the first week, like $4,000.
Casey put his own personal PayPal.
Yeah.
Just like, oh,
Like first $4,000 of merchandise sold. Casey's like, oh, we'll make this right. We'll fix it. Like, we'll ask people to like send the money in.
Yeah, repurchase a shirt.
Repurchase a shirt.
So people in good faith, I remember people in good faith would go to the website, gethushin.com, which is, what these guys helped Casey set up, and purchase a shirt, an empty shirt, like an empty product, just to basically give the money.
Just to pay.
Yes.
Yeah,
'Cause
exactly.
all that other money went to some other random email, and it was like a number, it was a digit off.
It was
Yeah.
one number in the end of his
Yeah.
email that Casey had changed,
Yeah.
and it was like that money was going to Homeboy.
There's
I
just
woke up one morning and was like, dude, $5,000.
so many funny stories like that of that have happened along the year, the struggles that we've gone through that maybe we don't ever highlight, but just like thinking back and talking through that, it brings up a lot of that stuff that maybe we haven't talked about in the past. So it would be fun to lay everything out.
It's
That would be a fun series, if you will, of podcast to tune into. I mean, I love listening to guests. I love if you guys bring guests on, love to hear their perspective. But even if you guys could timeline it to where those people that were part of those timelines are the guests, and then their perspective, and then you just riff like we're doing today. Like,
Well, that's what's so interesting about just this group sitting here. Like, we all have a story about how we got here, right? Like, the three of us all have a story of how we got there. Like, Maddie has a story, and I love hearing Maddie's story. It's kind of like Junior. Like, Maddie and his little brother grew up watching Hush, not to outdate ourselves, but they grew up as kids watching us. Like, Jed has a picture of him next to Eric at the expo, and Jed's 22 now, married. 23. Dude, Jed's sitting there like 11 years old with his arm around freaking Eric at an expo, or like 12 or something like that. I'm just
Wow,
like,
you're old.
It's crazy.
yeah, we
man.
all
Getting
have
there,
a story
yeah.
of how we
It's
got
starting to add
here.
up.
And even the story of how I met Eric and the story of how I met Brian and come together, it's all very interesting. How we met Jordan and Casey and Isaac and Nathan. Like,
The story of Isaac getting fired from Easton and you guys stepping in and helping me.
yeah.
Another story.
Another
Another podcast.
let's not have that happen at all. In let's have you stick around for a while.
I'm gonna need you.
And I love to see. It's been really cool for me to see with the partnership I have with Jordan and Casey. Just some of the things that he was just sharing right now, and the tactics on how they helped Hush and how they helped Mountain Ops grow and how they helped other business grow. I love seeing that they still apply it today. Like, they're super scrappy. They love creating win-win situations for all parties. And, you brought up the struggle of like, how are we going to pay Eric? And I love what these guys did. It's like, hey, well, we'll pay him half and you guys pay him half and we'll have him do both these things. Dude, they've been doing that at Ollin. Like right now we've got guys that are doing some marketing for us and all these different things, and we're paying some money to them, but you know, Ollin isn't in a position to pay these crazy salaries in our first year. And so they're leveraging their network and other people, and they're bringing those people in to pay part of their salaries too. And it's creating these win-win opportunities, which is really cool for me to witness and see. And it's cool to see that, like, you know, they were doing the same thing about a decade ago with Mountain Ops. So it's been pretty fun.
Man. Abundance is something that I've tried to live. Casey's tried to live our whole lives. And it's something, the law of abundance is it's not easy in the sense that trying to find the balance of how one can be abundant and can give, but also understand when to take, so that there is true and equitable exchange of value between parties, so that it fosters good relationship and good business practice as well as meaningful relationships. And I think that's what's cool about how kind of all of us came to you and you kind of came to us, and how we're all sitting here now, because it's another origin story that's forming, and it's coming together more and more, and we're converging again. We're building a formidable team again that is going to, as you have already done, and all credit to Nate, have already done. I mean, to give just, I want to just jump in real quick to giving some more context, and then I want you guys to kind of talk about how you guys met him, and me and Casey met him, and then how we got to Isaac. But like, Ollin, for everybody that's listening, the same way that Hush disrupted the industry, created a new category for digital consumption and digital delivery, and Mountain Ops delivered a new category of outdoor performance nutrition for outdoor hunters, fishermen, hikers, whatever. If you're outdoor pursuit, like nutrition to support you, those two categories are created by these founders and these creators, and are still the category kings of their category. And a category was created, Digiscoping, prior to, just like Wilderness Athlete came before Mountain Ops, 100%. Like Wilderness Athlete was in the space before we were. You wouldn't know that today. Chris Denham, him and I have a good relationship, and crazy story there. You guys remember this? Casey and I literally pitched them on doing all their marketing and blowing them up. And he said to me, I have my own magazine. I have my own TV show. I don't need you guys. And Mountain Ops was born literally 6 months later. And the rest is history. And similar to that, there is an individual who you know, helped create a category of digiscoping that paved a way for people to experience the outdoors in a much more meaningful way, to be able to capture it, to be able to experience it, and to share it. And that transformed the industry. And that individual created a category and is the king of that category there. But the new category within that category that has now been created through the brilliance and vision of Nathan's idea around using simple technology, like effortless technology. Technology is so simple. I love it how Isaac says it. You say it's like telling somebody how to start fire.
Yeah. It basically is. Well, no, it's like when I show this product off, it looks like I discovered fire for the first time.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know, it's like you're like that guy who's showing everyone, like, look, I can make fire. And that's what this product.
Do you have
like.
that?
There's one back there. Yeah, it's the spotting scope's on the tripod.
Grab it, Maddie. But like, so, I mean, Nate has this incredible idea. And so I want to turn it over to Nate to start telling the story of how this idea was born, how you came to this. I mean, it's one of those ideas, guys, that all of us sitting here on mics, when we first saw it, when we first heard it, all said to ourselves, why didn't I think of that?
Well, yeah. So not to jump ahead, I'm going to jump back. I remember like 2 years ago, Eric was like, dude, there's this kid. He has this idea for a digiscoping thing, and it's supposed to be really cool. He wants to talk to us. I'm like, there's a couple brands out there that, like, it seems pretty easy. Like, the one we use works, right? Like, how is this going to be any better? And then when he presented the idea to us a year and a half ago, we were like, oh yeah, why did we not think of that?
And it's one of those like Shark Tank moments when they come out and they show it to you and you're just like, dang, dude.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
you just revolutionized, completely flipped the script, and have recategorized and created a whole new category within a category. And now it's like, Nate, take it. Like how did it happen? Give us the Ollin origin story as it began in your dreams.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I always admit and tell my wife, try to tell people when I'm, jumping on podcasts and things like this, I feel like there's been a lot of divine intervention in how this product came to be, how the teams came to be. So definitely can't take all the credit for myself. I've also got an incredible wife who's super supportive of living a scrappy and frugal lifestyle so that we can try to build a business off the ground. Like these guys mentioned, it's just figuring out how to pay for yourself, let alone your wife and your kids. Always a struggle. But luckily, I've just, the stars have aligned for me in that sense where I've got a really good support group. So super grateful for that. The stars also aligned for us a few years ago. I think it was back in 2020. My dad drew out on a once in a lifetime bighorn sheep hunt in Idaho. That was the first time we had any of us in our family were even exposed to sheep hunting. It was in our home state. I didn't even know that literally an hour and a half from my house, there was this many just incredible opportunities to see bighorn sheep. So that was really, really cool to see. He drew out on that hunt. We loved it, learned a ton. And then the very next year, I drew out on the exact same tag. Like once in a lifetime. I think the odds were 3% at the time, 3 to 5%. And I happened to draw out on that same hunt. And one of the things that I had regretted from the year before going with my dad was spending more time in the field preseason trying to capture as much content as we possibly could. We had never sheep hunted, so when my dad drew, we actually hired an outfitter to go help us. And so we were less stressed in figuring out what ram we were going to go after, hoping that the outfitter would go and do that. Well, for my hunt, I was like, there's no way we're doing that. We're putting in the work ourselves. We're going to go try to find a big, mature ram to go after. And it was one particular incident. I believe this was actually on the hunt. So the hunt has started. We'd done a ton of scouting. Digiscoping played a big role in all of our scouting, recording, taking pictures, judging a bighorn sheep compared to any other animal that I've hunted was just a completely different ball game. I was super uneducated. And there was one particular trip where 10,000 feet in elevation, glassed up the biggest ram that we had seen. I remember seeing it through my spotting scope, telling my dad, who was next to me on the ridge, this is a big ram. We got to try to capture this. So I grabbed my previous digiscoping equipment that I had at the time, and I think it was a universal one that I was trying to screw on. And you can see in the video that we dropped when we launched, that's actual footage of that actual ram. You can see how shaky it is. You can hear my frustration. It's not made up. This is the real story. And as I'm trying to record this ram, the digiscoping thing literally falls off, and this ram walks behind the trees, and I missed that opportunity to get that really good content. And that was the moment that that pain point was became real. Because this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. You want to capture that footage, not just to go try to kill that ram, but just so you have that memory. That's been one of my favorite things of seeing people use this, is just hearing the stories they're sharing with me that they were able to capture because this is such a simple product to use. That's been one of my favorite parts about the whole thing. And so that's when the pain started. And then he mentioned the whole dream. This is where things get a little weird.
we talk about vision. One thing is I have a vision. You say the word because you have a vision statement, and then you have Nate who literally is having visions, and it's kind of like Steve Jobs. This kid is sober as AF, so his substance intake is Cheerios or Fruit Loops. So whatever he's getting
without the substances, I don't have to take them.
Because Steve Jobs, he in his book he talks about when he came up with the iPad and the iPod and all these. He literally, he was on some hallucinogens and he had these visions and these experiences where he literally saw the product, and then he went to his team and was like, build me this. And their team was like, yo, it's never been done. What are you talking about? And Steve Jobs was like, this. And so as he is now going to share that story, it resonates so much with Apple's origins and the stories of Steve Jobs and these transformative products. That why I love Nate's story is when you look at Steve Jobs' story, Steve Jobs, there was already the MP3 player. There was already some tablets. There was already some computers. There was already a marketplace there. But what did Apple do, right? They innovated, they created, and they disrupted, and they changed the game. And that's your story is so close to Steve's.
I think that's a key word that he brought up was innovated. I didn't invent digiscoping. invented.
It was already there.
already invented.
I didn't invent
innovated-
supplements.
I
It's already
innovated
there.
an easier and simpler way to be able to capture those experiences.
100%.
And, I'll never take credit for inventing digiscoping. It already existed, but innovating. And so, yeah, a couple months after the hunt, I'm laying in bed in the underwear, just trying to give everybody a visual. And
Okay, I got it.
I had a dream, and in the dream, I remember I was working on a product. Did not remember the details when I woke up. I didn't know what product it was. I just know that I was working on some sort of product in the dream. And so my mind is in innovation mode, and small house, bedroom here, office here, walked across in my underwear, sat at the desk, and I drew on a piece of paper this idea of a digiscoping adapter with magnets built into it. And I was just showing these guys some of my original Microsoft Word
perfect.
perfect.
Some of the screenshots
images,
even
some
had
of the
like a little paper clip on the side with a question. Do you need help?
Yeah, that was me. Not an artist. The piece of paper looked terrible. The stuff I was doing on Word looked absolutely terrible. Some of the logo ideas I had were horrendous. But the impression that I got at that time was, don't let this be an idea that just sits on a piece of paper. Go do something with this. And that day, I remember I got dressed in all clothes and went to Walmart and bought phone cases, magnets, glue, plastic, and I came back home and I thought I was gonna just freaking invent the internet, dude. I thought I was gonna go put something together that was just gonna be so phenomenal, and obviously just epic fail. Did not work. So then it went to me watching hours of YouTube videos. I'm not an engineer. My background's business marketing. But it was watching hours of YouTube videos to do the most basic CAD designs you could do. And literally, it's a circle, guys, with 4 circles inside that circle. Like, anybody that knows CAD could have done it in about 5 minutes. And I watched people who knew what they were doing in 5 minutes, and I was embarrassed because it took me like a week to do the basic design. I had a cousin that came in. I got it really, really close to what I had envisioned for my piece of paper idea. And I had a cousin come in and make a couple of little changes for me, who is an engineer, knew what he was doing. And then I knew I had to go 3D print that and, buy magnets and try to assemble it to get it to work. And the very first time and I still have these 3D prints. I should have brought them.
Yeah.
Show in the podcast. We'll have to show those a different time, but I've still got in a big box all these original prototypes that we have. Some of them were horrendous. But I remember like putting the magnets in, magnets have a positive and a negative side. One of the magnets I put in the wrong way. So I went to put the phone case on, like one of them was fighting while the other ones were not. And so I figured out which one it was. So then on the phone case side, I flipped that magnet around. And I remember building it and finally getting to a point where it was getting close. I had a really good buddy of mine who's still heavily involved in Ollin and other products at work on. His name's Paul Wadsworth. One day he'll be here full time. I just got to get enough funding to be able to afford the guy because he's way smarter than me. But I remember the first time I went to put it on the spotting scope like this. It was too tight. I spent hours hand sanding the inside of the stupid plastic adapter just to get it to work on my freaking spotting scope. Finally ended up going to my grandpa's shop and getting an electric drill so I could just zip it. And it was obviously like not a perfect circle when I got done with it, but I put it on. I had the phone case, and I remember the very first time, the very first prototype, when I put it on like this, it just worked.
Wow.
And that's when I was like, okay, this thing looks like shiz when I compare it to the other products I had sitting on the table. But if I'm out in the field trying to capture that once in a lifetime experience, I would rather use this than that. And that's when I was like, okay, what are the next steps? And then that's when we started to try to figure out, how do I figure out manufacturing? How do I figure out patents? How do I figure out all of that type of stuff? And through that process, there's a whole story on how I met Ben Dedimonte. Shed Crazy is what a lot of people know him as. There's a whole story we'll have to share about how I met him. It was actually because of my wife. The short story is he's one of the guys that I was following that I thought was funny. My wife literally emailed the dude to surprise me for a shed hunting trip to line up with these guys, and he actually said yes. And
What was that, like a birthday or a
like
Christmas?
a Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas.
We're in my living room at my parents' house with all of my siblings, and there's a video that my wife pulls up, and freaking Ben is on Christmas Day. There's a video of Ben like in our living room. And
I always joke with people about like I get paid to like you know, like your parents pay friends to hang out with their kids. Like your wife basically paid Ben to like hang out with you.
That's pretty much what happened.
Hey, my husband needs a friend.
So Ben agreed to it at the time. He was still up and coming too. He was still new to it, and so I think at the time he probably had a little bit more flexibility. But we could not get our calendars to line up for like 2 years, and the time we finally got it lined up was the time I was working on this and had prototypes. And I was trying to get feedback. Am I the only one experiencing these pain points with digiscoping? Are other people experiencing it? Got together with Ben. He instantly was just like, holy crap, dude, I don't think you realize like how awesome this is. Freaked out about it. And it was through the relationship I had with him that I actually got connected to the full Hush crew. I had DM'd, Eric and I had DM'd a little bit like years prior about a Wyoming hunt. He didn't remember that. I actually didn't remember exactly all the details, but I knew we had DM, but none of
Oh, you slid into his DMs, huh?
Yeah, he slid into the DMs.
Dirty.
Dang.
Because it's funny because
You
Ben,
young kids.
you guys had gone out and Ben had mentioned like, dude, there's a product this guy's working on. It's insane. I was like, oh yeah, he DM'd me. Like, you know, because we
This
do.
is not about the product, by the way. I DM'd him about a Wyoming hunt.
Yeah.
Yep.
But there was a DM about an idea about a product.
Oh, maybe I
from
didn't
you
even
to me.
remember that.
Yeah, and I was like, oh yeah, that's sitting in like the inbox I never replied to because honestly, like we would get a lot of that stuff. I'm sure everyone on this panel is like, hey, I've got an idea of some kind, whether it's a business plan, a content plan, a video channel, etc. And I remember just being like, oh yeah, I remember he's in the inbox. Like, what's his name again? Like, and then Ben, you know, we exchanged phone numbers and stuff, and he was pretty tight-lipped about it, man. Like, he really didn't show me, he didn't tell me anything, but he just said, there's a product that's gonna
Which, if
make
anybody
waves.
knows Ben, that's pretty crazy that he was able to keep something tight-lipped because
I was gonna say that's pretty.
that in and of itself is a miracle. But yeah, I mean, do you guys want to get into the nitty-gritty of what happened next with like our partnership? I think it's fun to hear. I think we're in a good place now.
We're open and honest, you know?
Real quick, guys, though, I got to interrupt real quick. I got some breakfast burritos being DoorDashed here. So, heads up, we'll be here in a half an hour.
The future.
So, letting you know that, if you could let them, you know.
Can you imagine back in like 2014 if like somebody said that? You'd be like, what does that even
As soon as we got here, just so you guys know, as soon as we got here, I was talking to Jordan. He's like, hold on, I got to take this. He's like, what's that? You want me to DoorDash you Subway?
Oh my God.
His kid calls him and like forgot his lunch money or something. He's like, DoorDash me some Subway, Dad. Like, what times are we living
He's
in?
going to basketball camp and he's like, hey, Dad, so me and Mom are going to basketball camp. She forgot my lunch. So can you DoorDash me some Subway?
To the camp?
Yeah, to the camp. And I'm like, well, okay. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, Dad, I want steak, maybe toasted, some chips, maybe a cookie and drink. And I was like,
My gosh.
little schmuck, like the world you're living in. We're just going to have what, Beto's burritos? Just
Yep. I got 8 breakfast burritos,
I
4
love you,
bacon, 4 steak, no potatoes, just egg.
straight
Killer.
egg and
Let's
protein.
go.
And
No,
there,
what's
so I got those being my assistant just DoorDashed them for us, so you could thank her. That's why I was on my phone. Whoever was watching, I wasn't being rude, but I was texting my assistant to order some burritos.
Incredible.
Well, just
Amazing.
imagine when we're going to be able to use satellites and drones to be in the middle of Alaska bush and just stick a
Pizza.
Subway sandwich or pizza.
Just a drone.
Drones it in like think
Not
how much
far
further
off.
We can
It's
hike,
gonna
dude.
be
We don't have
on
to
the-
carry all our food and our gear. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
drones
Gonna be
into
out on the
us.
south slope, and he's like, dude,
Hungry.
need some freaking protein, bacon. Yeah, breakfast burritos.
Sorry, ADHD moment there. So
Honestly, though, but the great thing about it is you kind of, as Ben you had reached out to you guys, had formed a connection that led you to Eric, and then getting to Eric led you to the
whole
Hush
crew,
crew.
yep.
And the Hush crew, just as you guys are now going to hear on this podcast, played a really pivotal role in a coming and meeting Nate at a pivotal time when he was in his process of creation and looking at going to market. And they kind of pulled him back and said, hey, let's talk about that. So like,
Yep.
BMAC,
Yep.
take her away.
Yeah, we had a meeting up in Pocatello, Casey's
and
shop.
I think it was either February or March of 2022. So at this point, I'm getting ready to roll into production with no real strong marketing plan other than we had Ben. We had what we felt was a disruptive product. And now we're exploring a potential partnership with Hush, which obviously, followed your guys' story, know it's a big platform and know it's, something that could drive a lot of initial sales. I'll kind of let you go back into it, but just to give you guys a time frame, that's kind of where we were at. So this was 3 or 4 months prior to, or was it a year?
I think we met in Casey Shop sometime in the summer, and we had some prototypes that you showed us. You had a different name variation that you showed us, some different logos and packaging. And I think the first time we actually saw the product, got to actually play around with it, it was super exciting. We obviously have done a lot of digiscoping over the years. I would argue as much as anybody. It's heavily involved throughout the shed tour. Obviously, all of our big game content, our archery stuff, like you name it, we've used it. And so it was a light bulb moment of like, okay, this is a really great product. We believe it's going to be disruptive, to Jordan's point earlier. So let's talk further about how do we, work with you, Nathan, on becoming a partner of it, and what can we bring to the table that would be valuable?
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember because Logie actually helped design some of what was going to be our original boxes, and some of you guys have those. Those are going to be worth a lot of money down the road, so hold on to those. I know you guys have complained that you want the reds, you'll be able to get the reds, but those ones are historic, so keep a hold of those. I think Logie helped design items. So we hadn't rolled into production yet. We were getting ready to, because Logie helped with some of that design.
Yeah.
And so this was pre-launch. Nobody besides that circle and the people that I had gone out and tried to validate the product with knew about what we were building. Right. And so we were trying to work through a partnership. It was a new experience for all of us. And like I said in the last video that we dropped with these guys is, sometimes good partnerships just take time. And this was like a perfect example of that. One of the things that Ollin's done that's been a little bit unique in this space is we've brought on particular strategic partners that are getting compensated in a different way, not through a commission check, not through a monthly retainer or an annual retainer, but actually earning and having some skin into the game. These guys have come in and actually put their own cash into investing and becoming owners in Ollin, as well as they're going to be working their guts out to build up, so to earn some more equity options in the company over the next, long time is life of the business, and we were having lots of conversations about how to structure that in the earlier days. And from my perspective, and these guys have their own perspective, number one, I was super pumped about the potential to work with these guys. I was trying to, it's really hard when you're making business decisions to disconnect your passion to strategic business decisions. And so I was wrestling with some things, and the initial, let's get this thing going and partner together, the initial partnership just fell through. It was a decision that I had made. I felt like I wanted to actually launch this prior to having Hush come on to show, what I was capable of, what the business was, what the product was capable of, and that partnership ended up not working out. And it was a little bit hard to wrestle with, but I had to own that decision at the time, and in so doing, I had to just move forward. It's like, okay, this fell through, didn't work out at this time. I got to move forward, and this is where.
Well, you guys came up with the name MagScope?
MagScope. Yeah. I had Magniscopes. Yeah, dude, and those guys corrected that.
This guy had this M. He just showed me the logo. Had this MC. The C guys. Give me your phone.
Don't ever make that public.
Is what do we call it?
Sorry, batteries.
The Acme.
The Looney Tunes
giant
magnet, like a horseshoe.
I just drew that on a piece of paper.
We'll do an overlay on the video of it.
Okay.
And so thankfully, these guys entered the chat room and advised him. Let's go a little bit farther. They came up with a brilliant name, MagScope. I mean, that literally says what it does. It's perfect. Designed a new logo, came up with great packaging, and formed what was going to be a great launch. And then as they were having their discussions about kind of how we're going to shape this, because this for Hush is like the first time. Every partnership that you guys have had that we just talked about, First Light, Mountain Ops, Scope Cam, like all these were just, hey, we're going to pay you. You're going to promote us. And then those, Brian knows this better than anybody who run the business side. As you guys perform better, you have leverage and negotiation, go back to those partnerships and say, we feel because of what we've delivered beyond what we even committed to that we should get more money. Right? Because this is going to strengthen our partnership, and brands that recognize that come back and say, well, what do we need to do?
Yeah. Just for a little context too, like for those that aren't familiar with the way that we have been able to earn a living for our families is a couple buckets, right? We were able to make a living through selling our merchandise. We're able to make a living through sponsor and partner relations. So like Jordan alluded to, we have the ability to make a little bit of money through YouTube, through the ads that you guys are watching or skipping for me. We get a little bit there. And then the Hush discount code does provide a little bit of a commission incentive over the years. I would say not much. Like our primary source of income is selling our own stuff. Like that's the main.
Because that's superseded your sponsorships.
Yeah.
Because and then for people listening to the podcast, just so you guys know, if you guys are ever trying to build a business, the way these guys have done it is literally the textbook way to do it, which is they leaned on their own money up front. They built something of value. They offered that value to other companies. Companies saw that value, paid into that value. They were able to take that money and build a business, buy merchandise, and begin to create an interdependence model that became less dependent on sponsorships. So when I talked earlier about authenticity, genuineness, and the way that their content comes through and the way that they inform or promote even the products that they're sponsored by or the partnerships that they have, you guys should know from someone who doesn't own the company, somebody who's just a spectator, somebody who's a deep friend with all these guys, that the reason and the success associated with why you guys have been so successful is because of what BMAC just said. You as the Hush following audience community are now the lifeblood of this company. The sponsorships are gravy. They're great. They help the business. The partnerships are there intentionally and meaningfully because they have relationships with these people at these brands and they love these products. I mean, Hush has never, in all the years that I've known you guys, I remember when you guys were at Mountain Ops and having discussions about other people you're working with, the way these three would talk, it almost seemed like it was never about money. It was always about like, okay, so like, do we really love this? Do we really enjoy, like, is this really going to improve our experience in how we're going to hunt, how we're going to create content from a strategic standpoint? Can we add value? And it was always, I was like, dude, these guys are so abundant. Their first thought, instead of like, what can I take from, let's say Stealthcam, or what can I take from First Lite, or what can I take from Camp Chef, was always like, I mean, I remember one conversation when Camp Chef was finally kind of like, hey, we've just been giving you stoves. We actually want to like form a real monetary partnership. Casey's like, dude, we got to, and he started going off about what we could give, what we could do, what we could bring. And that is why I think all of your partnerships have been so strong, so successful. And for those that are kind of creating content and doing that, just know that as you're doing that, if you're looking just what you can take, it's a short road. It won't last very long. But if you can find meaningful ways in what you can give and what value you can add and then what value can be reciprocated, those are lifelong partnerships and relationships that will form. But I just love to have you kind of help everybody understand now. If you don't understand the history, like Hush, and because of your success as a business, your audience is and your business is thriving because of your consumers, your customers, your loyal followers that love Hush brand.
Here's the other thing, like dating back to the TV era, everybody was always chasing the dollar. So you'd see it often, like a particular TV show would work with like a certain optics company. And then a year later, they'd be with a different one. And then 2 years later, they'd be with even a different one. And so it was clearly like a monetary decision. And when we started this, we came together, we made a list of companies that we thought we'd be interested. We pursued that list heavily, oftentimes hearing no, going back to the table, making a better pitch, and finally getting some kind of agreement on companies that we were passionate about. And the goal was we needed to love the product and we needed to love the people. And if either one of those two changed, then it wasn't going to be right for us. So it never had anything to do with money. It always had to do with, is it a good product and are they good people? And I can say to this day, 10 years later, we've never went to somebody for money. We have walked away from some companies for those two reasons. Either the products didn't hold up or the people changed. And I think like that is a powerful thing for, again, anybody looking to try to do this thing is, man, don't think about it in a monetary way. Just go use the stuff that you believe in, right? That you're passionate in, that you like. And I feel like that was a key component. And to be able to look back and have these companies that were with us from literally before we even made a dollar, like Camp Chef or a Vortex or a First Lite, right? Mountain Ops is an early partner. Like, I'm super proud of the fact that we have stayed true to that, right? And then I think that just helps people get a little bit better understanding of like the components and the business working of what we have now. And to Jordan's point, like the next evolution of that is, okay, because our audience has been so incredibly supportive of it, like we can't reiterate this enough. We do not exist without our audience base. And they're the lifeblood of us being able to wake up every day, do something that we love, to provide for our families, and to continue to try to hopefully do this for another 10 years. That is so like such a humbling experience. And we feel it a lot at these hunt expos when we get to actually meet people, you know, face to face, or when we bump into people like an airport or random places. It's crazy. It's wild. We're so appreciative and humble and thankful for that. And so it gets us excited to look at these next steps of our business journey, our entrepreneurial journey, which is how can we take what we've built now and look at investing in some strategic companies that we believe in the product and the people. And so putting our own skin in the game and really seeing, hey, with the passion we have behind a product like Ollin, a company like Ollin, introducing it to our community, our audience, and like truly believing in it from before it even existed, right? We believed in it the minute we saw the product. It was just running down the road for a couple of years of like, how do we formalize this? It was new to us, like Nathan mentioned. It was new to him. And it did take some time to kind of figure out what was the right approach. But I believe that like what we have today is a stronger partnership than what we would have had that initial one proceeded.
100%. And a couple of key, I love extracting business principles from these conversations, and a couple of really key ones that he brought up that I just want to iterate to the audience, because I think they're super important as you're trying to start. You know, number one, figure out what you're truly passionate about and create a business behind whatever that passion is. Number one, know your why. Know your purpose, know your why. And along with that, money should never be the why. Money, this is the conversation Casey I had on the way here. It is an amplifier. It is a tool used to measure progress, measure success, but it's not the why. Money, I've always looked at it, it's an amplifier. People that make good money, that are good people, are going to do more good things. People that are bad people that make good money are going to do more bad things. And so know your true why, and then know who your audience is and do everything you can to create and add value to that audience. That's the lifeblood of their business. That's the lifeblood of every business. Yep. We're a consumer good business selling literally a physical product to somebody. And that product has to be something that adds value to our consumers. These guys, literally their content is only grows as you guys find value in that content. And so know your why, and know that the customers are the lifeblood of the business, and do everything you can to create and add value for those customers. And so
that's why when you talk about, like, again, BMAC said it so well, like purpose, people, and then profit, because your purpose is what drives you to build a meaningful business and to give back to a meaningful and build a community with people. Because a brand is nothing more than just a mark. It's a logo. It's a look. I mean, I've been doing this now for 20 years. This is wild to say. I've been building brands for 20 years. And so I've had the experiences of building brands from nothing to something, and being part of brands that were, you know, in their maturity and then wanted to refresh and, you know, and reposition. And every time that those decisions are made, it's about the people. Because either a brand is suffering because it doesn't have enough people, or the people don't like what they're getting or what's being offered, and they have to recommunicate, or a brand does a really good job up front focusing on the people. Because it's just product. And it's just a brand, but it's the people that make that product and that brand what it is. That's what we call the brand experience. If you don't have a brand experience, it's literally because you don't have people. You're just so focused on the product, and you're so focused on the profit that you forget about what's most important, which is the people. And so what I loved about your guys' story and how you guys all got together is it was people coming together. You had watched Eric, you had watched Mountain Ops, me and Case, you'd watched Ben Denimani, you'd watched the Hush guys, you even knew Isaac and was aware of him. And like, these are guys that like you just watched as a pedestrian, watching us build our businesses and do this. And then to now hear the story that you just shared. And then I think what BMAC was alluding to really well was just the fact that, like, in the early days of Hush, a partnership formed and almost a creed was made. Like, this is the manifesto. This is how we will run our business. These are the pillars of our business, which you guys still today have and have stood by for a decade and will stand by until the end of time. Nothing will change as far as the purpose and the mission of Hush and the people and how you impact them with your guys' 4 pillars. And I think, you know, as you guys got to Nate, there was this new transition of maturity in business, maturity in career, and a recognition of, I think, and this is the natural evolution of anybody in business, is that you go from working from someone to, if you become an entrepreneur, you begin working for yourself and you work with others. You don't work for people, you work with people, and then you begin to diversify. And that process of diversification for Hush came naturally through starting with partnerships and relationships, compensation through those monetary experiences, and then you guys created value with great product and great that your customers bought. And then now you've diversified inside of Hush as a company. It's very well diversified. You guys even have seasonings. Best seasonings yet, I think is what it's called.
Bar.
So you got, I mean, and there's
right?
all these products. So it's not just shirts and hats at Hush. There is so much product that's coming, and more product that's coming, right? So like the audience is excited because more things that have the Hush brand and embody the Hush beliefs and values are coming through more product. But then now you guys as entrepreneurs, like BMAC said, are really thoughtful about, we're ready to take the value that we've created and the value that we can offer, and we're ready to bring that value to companies. And not that you're not willing to have a discussion about partnerships and monetary, but in this instance, with it being such an early stage startup, you guys came to the table with an offer that was like, we want to help build your company. We want to be partners. We are partners, like you're partners with First Lite, you're partners with Mountain Ups, but true material partners. We want to be owners of this, right? And that ownership word is where you guys got into some early discussion. I remember you and me going to breakfast and you're like, dude, I met this guy, you know, his name's Nate. He's got this product. I don't even know if I can tell you about it, but dude, I'm telling you,
idiot.
and he's telling me everything he can without telling me exactly what it is. I never knew what it was. And I, as a friend, just started to advise him and consult him on ways to negotiate a deal and what I would do if I was in a situation and if I was in this Nate guy's situation. And so I was kind of like in your ear. You come back to them, you guys would talk about it, and you guys got to a point to where the deal actually fell apart. Yeah. It didn't go through. And what was frustrating, I think, for both sides was that Hush had brought a new name, new packaging, all this vision and all this energy into what Nathan had created, and they created it, and then like it didn't go through. And that in business is the worst thing, because there was a lot of trust, a lot of expectations, a lot of like time invested, money invested, time and money.
Hours on the phone, Nate, with just going through legal jargon, dude.
Emails,
shoot me in the face.
Kind of stuff. Yeah.
And I was just on the sideline, still not knowing exactly what this product was.
We didn't even know each other.
We hadn't even met yet. And I'm kind of all of a sudden, you know, talking to Eric, and Eric tells me, dude, it didn't happen. It didn't go through. And I remember his face, because Eric was like, I could tell, like, whatever this product is, you are like confident that it's going to change the world.
They were ready to find where this little Idaho nobody lived, and they were about to burn the house. I was just like, the stupidest.
Eric was like, we're coming for that Nate guy.
It's the truth, though. Like,
we did all this work.
Is gonna tank.
like when we got presented the idea, it was, and you know, fortunately for us, like Divine Intervention, like we were with a digiscoping company the year before, and all agreed like we were ready to walk away from them. And so we walked away from them just thinking like, oh, we just won't have that product category, you know, like, and then this all came to be, and we saw the product and we all fell in love with it immediately and knew it was like that moment, like, why didn't I think of that? And then we started working out this deal, and we were all just so gung-ho because we knew it would change the game and it would disrupt a lot. And then we got to meet Nathan, and we started talking through this deal, and we're like, dude, let's go into this guns a-blazing. Like, we're finally going to own a piece of the pie, you know, like we're going to have ownership in this business that we're going to promote. And then we both, you know, whatever happened, mutually agreed to walk away from the deal. And it was very disheartening. I remember thinking in my head, like, man, we messed that up. We screwed that up.
And I'm the type of people too, like, I'm the type of person too, like, you know, sometimes it's my strength, sometimes it's my weakness, where I'm kind of a people pleaser. And it was a really hard business decision. What it came down to for me, it wasn't any outside, you know, obviously I had family that knew what was going on. They were trying to tell me one thing, but at the end of the day, my gut was just like, timing is off. Like that's what my gut was telling me. Timing was off. Not that I didn't want to work with Hush. I actually was really anxious and excited to work with the full crew, but timing was off. And so when I made that decision, I had to own that decision and I had to move forward. And what's crazy, talk about more divine intervention.
This part was crazy because as we keep going down the story, like,
and just so you guys know, like
here,
that impacted Hush because, you know, in multiple ways, not just the time and the effort and energy and everything they were putting into it. Like they walked away from a nice paycheck from a company that was in the space doing the exact same thing. And like, you know, obviously I felt a little bit of responsibility, but in my head, I was like, okay, it was a business decision for them. Like I can't take full ownership of that, even though I felt responsibility of the deal falling through. And so there was like some weight on my chest that I was feeling that I felt a little guilty about, but I knew I had to move forward and own that.
And so he had Casey and I at the time were working out of a remote office, and it was an office that had like all these glass walls. Like
Yeah,
it was
the whole
fully
thing was
glass.
an industrial building. Glass.
Sweet building, way cool building.
Silicon slab.
Oh, yeah.
It was cool.
And all of a sudden, me and Casey are sitting there and we're talking, and this kid walks by and he's got a Mountain Ops shirt, he's got a Mountain Ops shaker, and he's got Mountain Ops joggers on.
Yeah, and before you go to the next part, let me tell you why I was there. So just so you know, this whole time,
Just fanboying.
just like Hush, just like Hush, when they were building Hush, they all had other things that, you know, they were working, they had to make a living somewhere. BMAC was doing his own full-time thing while trying to push this. And I guess that's another key thing to extract, guys. If you're asking yourself what I'm passionate about, if it's not something you're willing to work for outside of your 9 to 5, you're probably not very passionate about it. And that's when you got to reevaluate. But I was working a full-time job. It was a company that I had actually helped. I was one of the early business developers in another company. I won't dive into that. But I was living in Idaho. I drove to Utah while working that full-time job. I was taking sales calls. I was a sales position. And then I was running, and I had brought Ben Dedamonte down Shed Crazy, and we were trying to film what was going to be the original like
Launch video
for at the time what was going to be MagScope. And yeah, so we're in this building, and it just so happens. So I had an
Because
uncle.
it was your uncle, right? Yeah.
My
Your uncle was
uncle,
working
yep.
on the same building.
Yep, my uncle, he owns a company called Media Elevated. They do digital marketing for certain companies, and he happened to be in this office where, you know, he had a little team that could help film. So we were there. I would literally run from my computer. I'd do a sales call for Sign Glasses, the company I was working full time. I'd run into this booth with Ben, and we'd sit down, and I was freaking like overweight and stressed and white and like just like stressed.
Well, you're still white, but
Still white as hell. And I remember we're filming, and I had never done anything
You're
like
the only
this,
one that
right?
can actually say that on this podcast. Like,
But he looked right at me. He says, "You're still white," and he's like,
We won't go down that rabbit hole any further. And we're filming this, and I remember it was like the second day we had finished stuff, and so this is where it transitions to where he was talking into. I'm literally wearing a Mountain Ops shirt, carrying a Mountain Ops mug, walking around with like all this equipment, like just like here I am, like trying to start this business.
back and forth.
And I knew Jordan and Casey just from seeing them on the Mountain Ops platform, but no personal relationship, had never talked to him in my life.
He never slipped in my DMs.
Never slipped his hands like Eric.
Never asked me about anything. He's like, that guy doesn't know how to hunt. Why am I going to ask him about anything?
But
I'm
I
gonna go to
remember
Eric.
walking by, and what's crazy is like the fact that my uncle's office was even there, and that you guys were there, and that you were in your office when
That
I know
day.
you guys are in a billion places doing a
Yep.
billion things, and I recognized that they were from Mountain Ops. And I remember there was like other guys in the office with you, and I called my wife and I was like, you want to know something crazy? Like the Mountain Ops guys work, like their office is here, they work here. And she's like, oh, why don't you go talk to them? And I was like, I'm not gonna go talk to them. Like I don't even, I didn't want to go talk.
She's
to
like, hold on, let me make a call. Breck set something up.
hey, Jordan, I'll pay you to hang out with me.
She sent me an email. I mean, she added me on LinkedIn. We started,
And I remember telling her, I was like, it looks like they're in a meeting. I'm not going to bug them. I said that to her. And then as I walked back, it was my last trip to go to the truck to leave back to Idaho. it was just Jordan and Casey sitting in there.
Yep, it was just the two of us.
Glass doors, and I probably look like the biggest freaking doofus ever. Dude, I walk up to the door and it's glass. You can see it's like, I don't know how the glass like is gonna break up audio.
Big fan.
Me and Casey are sitting there and we're kind of having a conversation. Out of the corner of my eye, I see somebody walk up to the glass and there's the glass door. And this person starts talking through the glass. and me and Casey look over and he's like, hey, I'm Nate. And I'm like, I look at him, I go, do you want to come in?
Yeah, Jordan was super nice. So he opened the door. Luckily, it was just super nice. I'm sure he assumed it's just a fanboy that wants to meet him.
I'm like, this kid is so he knows who we are.
Yep.
He's probably gonna come ask us like, hey,
And so the guys, there was no plan for me to pitch what I was doing to these guys. That's what I talk about, like these stories, how their stories, Isaac's story, like all of their stories, like you can't make this stuff up. Like you really can't. And I go in there and we start talking. I introduce him and I tried to break the ice and I said, we haven't seen you on social in a while. Like what's been going on? This is not long after your acquisition, huh?
He literally goes, so you're okay? Right? And I was like, dude, I'm great. He's like, well, I mean, you haven't been on social for like 3 years. I was like, well, dude, we sold a majority stake in our company and my responsibilities and duties to what I was doing for the company wasn't needed in that aspect. So I actually kind of took a hiatus and it's been nice. And I've kind of enjoyed just being off the grid. I'm still following along and, being the ghost that's following everybody else's stories and stuff, but I'm just not sharing mine or I'm not out there like I was for almost, 9 years or whatever. And so he's like, oh, okay. Well, and dude, he just went right into it. Like you're like a Shark Tank moment episode. He had his stuff in his hands. He set it down. He's like, listen, do you guys have like 5 minutes? And me and Casey looked at each other. We're like, sure, man. Like, and Casey and I at this time, we have been being pitched lots. I mean, now with people knowing that we sold a majority stake in the company, we've got some extra time. We're working on some special projects. It is an onslaught of business ideas that get pitched to us every week, and not just in hunting, in all spaces. And so we had literally, the people that were before him had just pitched us their business. And Casey and I said, I just don't think that's one we're very interested in. We probably are going to have to let them know. We're not going to probably participate or invest in them. And he walks in and he just goes, after that hilarious exchange, he just goes into pitching. And all of a sudden he pulls it out. And when he did it the first time, like you say, like just as easy as starting fire, I looked at him, I said, this is the thing Eric's been talking about. And I was like, Eric Chesser, don't you?
Yeah.
And he's like,
well, he was like, wait, this is Magscope at the time. He's like, this is Magscope. This is you. And I was like, yeah, how do you know about this?
And I was like, I was
like, who do I need to go sue? Is it
I was like, I only know the name. I wasn't really told the product other than it was in the space and going to be revolutionary. But Eric was really tight-lipped and didn't really share much. He respected whatever the expectation was to not share information. So I called it right. I was like, this, he's like, yes. I was like, okay. And then he just went into his pitch, started explaining stuff. And then he kind of went into the experience with Hush. And I was like, and I asked him straight up, I was like, what happened? Like, why didn't that come to be? And what we just talked about, explain that. And it was interesting because he was like, I'm ready to go to market and launch. I'm ready to go. And me and Casey looked at him and we said, listen, you're going to think we're absolutely crazy because you have just gone through an experience where you almost formed a partnership. You've branded this now. You've got packaging. You've got product that's landed, and you're ready to go to market, but you're not ready to go to market.
Yep.
And he looked at me and Casey, and they're like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "If you will listen to us, just listen to us. I promise you, we're going to help prepare you for going to market in a way that you get one shot. You really get one opportunity to come to market, make your name, make your mark, be disruptive, be loud." And he was like, well, I got to get this right. I got to go to Western Hunting Expo. I'm like, you're not launching at Western Hunting Expo. Just so you know, count that out. We're going to be spending months on this. And that began a long process of,
and that's when the butt cheeks really started to, clinch up a little bit. I was like, so at this point, guys,
already put so much money in,
and I had taken capital from some family investors, and they're, a lot of these family investors, they believed in me, but they also just knew the product was really cool, and they trusted in word of mouth. And were anxious for me to go launch as well. And so anyways, you can keep going. But
Well, and so, I mean, Casey and I just took him through our process, and Casey and I do this with every founder that we work with today. We take them through a rigorous process of asking them to do things for us and asking them
feedback.
questions and to the point where it would make anyone break and be like, I am so tired of these two guys. I don't want to work with them. Like, they're asking me all this stuff. I don't want, and it's kind of our due diligence process. And dude, everything we asked of him, everything we requested of him, everything we wanted to see, everything
I
we
made a
wanted to
list.
prepare, he just kept checking every box off. And I kept looking at Casey like, dude, you know, we've been now through 3 due diligence process and businesses that we've said these founders, these operators, they don't have it. They might be successful, but I don't think we're the right partners. So we walked away from those opportunities. But as we kept challenging him, as we kept like testing him, he kept doing it. Everything we'd ask, he'd do it. And he would come back the next day. It wasn't like, oh, I'll get back to you next week. It was like, I'll have it to you tomorrow. I've got this tomorrow. And so finally, after, you know, some rigorous weeks of really testing Nate as an operator and what kind of operator he's going to be, he really did pass mine and Casey's test where we were like, this kid is really special. I think he's got exactly what it takes. He's got an incredible idea. He's got a great business. I think now if we can help coach him on the best ways and practices to begin to prepare for a longer term rather than an immediate go to market, what's the long term look like, right? And so that actually is what played into renaming the company. Is I looked at MagScope and I was like, brilliant name, great look, great packaging, everything's there. And I remember when I told him, I was like, we're going to rebrand it. He was like, but I've already paid for all these boxes. They're injection molded on the product. Like I said, dude, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I said, what I want you, because as Nate would always express, as you guys have learned, he's a very passionate person like myself and like all of us. The way that he would talk about his business, I was like, listen, man, I was part of branding and rebranding the Category King that, you know, exists in the market. We built their new logo, built their new look. I rebranded their entire company. I set them up. We set them up. I didn't set them up. We set them up for great success, which helped them a lot. So I said, if there's one thing we really understand, it's how important this moment is and how important the brand is and the mark and the look and the name and what it plays into. And so we literally gave him an assignment. I said, I can come up with a name. I can come up with a business. I can do all this, but this is your business. So I want you to go back. I want you to think of a new name and I want you to tie it to something and I want you to bring it back to us. So I want to segue real quick back to you and how you came up with the name, the new name, and why and how what it means.
Yeah. So one of the things that he mentioned that I've always been passionate about is, you know, I want to understand my why of what I'm doing. So have my vision and then understand, you know, how am I going to get there? So that's where I think that the business principles to pull out of this one too is have a good vision statement. That should be your why. And then your how is your mission statement. How are you going to get there? And so I had been writing ideas on a piece of paper on Excel of, you know, why am I actually building this product? Like, why am I trying to build this business? And I've been writing things and trying to figure out what the company could be. And it just so happened at the time, I was reading a book called Aspire, which for anybody listening, I'm not a reader. I rather listen to podcasts or watch a video, which is good for their business. Not so good for Isaac when he's back at Easton's. But I was reading this book called Aspire, and this book's by a guy named Kevin Hall. I think he's actually from Utah. And the book's all about the power of words and how they influence our life. So this guy has literally traveled the world and has learned so much about different cultures. And each chapter was a specific word that he extracted from experiences that he had learning about these different cultures. You know, namaste is one of the chapters, and you can go read all about, you know, his experience and how that word came about and everything like that. And so I was reading this book, and Ollin was one of the words, and unfortunately is one of the earlier chapters. I don't even know if I finished the entire book after I read this chapter. And Ollin, essentially, it's an ancient Aztec word. When a big storm or earthquake would shake the earth, these Aztecs would yell and scream in urgency this word, all in. And it literally translates into moving and acting with all your heart right now. And when I read that, I was like, dude, that's exactly how I felt when I looked at that piece of paper, that crappy drawing that I made with the Digiscoping, and after like move and act, do something with this. And then the more I learned about that word, it's also on the Mexica sunstone, and it signifies the moment somebody becomes aware of what they can become or realizes their potential. That's the why, right? And so I started feeling some really good synergies with that, looking at some of the things that I wrote down. And that's what's led to Ollin vision of, I want this platform. We want this platform. We want Ollin to be a platform where we can help people realize their true potential and become what they can become. That's our why. And then our how, or our mission statement, is through our strategic partners, our innovative products, and the content we share to you guys, we hope to empower and connect you to your passion and empower you to move and act with all your heart today. Because if you're not moving, you're not going anywhere. And so that's kind of how Ollin came to be. And we immediately, when I shared that story with him, he's actually the genius behind the actual logo, but it literally means to go all in.
Nate comes and does that. So me and Casey are sitting there. We're like,
You're loving this, aren't you, Jordan? Jordan is just eating this up, everybody.
and I will have people go create name or tie it to something, right? Because again, people just think like a logo is just a logo. I'm like, it is so much more than that. I mean, I could spend a series of podcasts talking about how important a brand, how important the meaning behind that, the look, the icon, the name, how it all connects, how it has purpose and meaning behind it, and the experience that people are going to have with it when they experience the brand, right? And the people behind it and the products that it sells. And so when he shared that with me, I just looked at him, I said, dude, absolutely brilliant. We went and looked online. I was like, dude, the equity as far as what we can take from this, no one has used this except the Aztecs. Nobody has thought of what you thought of. I said social media, like, I mean, there's a couple like All-ins out there, but they're Russian companies and other stuff. But it was like, it is completely ours. We can own this. And that's usually what Casey and I are always trying to find, because that's the hardest thing today when people are starting a new company, creating a new name, is can you really own that real estate? Because there's been so many companies and so many things on the digital internet and social media that's been already, grabbed. And so I said, okay, Nate, this is how I operate. I am not an agency marketing anymore. So I don't come to you and say, hey, I'm going to send you a couple logo ideas, and then you're going to tell me if you like them, and then we'll nail it down. I'm like, I will come to you with the logo. That's how this works. That's my old career. Now, and
if you saw me drawing on a piece of paper, I was all about that.
Sweet. My plate. I will bring you a logo, and the one I will bring you will be it. It'll be done. We will not make it a single change to it. And so the idea behind the mark came from, obviously naturally we've got Ollin. And so the O became kind of paramount as far as the first letter. Okay, is there something that we could tie that to? So I said, okay, let's do a stylized O. Worked with a bunch of different O's. And then I started to stencil them and cut into them. And then I started to create different shapes inside of them. And when I finally fell on this one, it was all intentional about the purpose of what the eye sees. So, I mean, a person without hearing this story might look at that simply and say, that's badass. That's a cool logo. Like, that's really iconic. Like, I'll see that and I'll never forget that, right? But the more that you now understand Ollin and that everything is about going all in, the whole intention behind this box that is the shape inside the O is that everything that Nate's done, and from the origins of his story, it all came from many ideas and visions out of the box. And everything about what he does and how he thinks and how he feels about things is very much out of the box. So if you look inside the actual icon, it's a 3-dimensional box. And all the lines, if your eye is looking at it, are drawing you to the center. So the intentional behind the mark is that it's drawing you to the center, and that what's inside that box and what that means.
Your why.
It's your why. And so it's the 4 pillars, if you will, play into the 4 corners of what it means and everything that he just described. And so that stylized O became like, once I made it and looked at it, I was like, that's it. That's going to be the mark. It's the same way Joel felt when Joel Pilcher designed the MO of Mountain Ops, and he presented it to Casey and I. I mean, you just, as a designer or somebody who develops brands, when you've hit it, it's just there. So I presented it to him, and he just literally looked at it and was like, oh my gosh, I love it. Like, that's it. Let's go. I mean, there was not I don't know if I like it. He's just like, dude, let's go. And, the red obviously is very intentional because It plays into the heart. It plays into purpose and passion. Red is a color in color theory that means and represents those things when you see it and feel it, as well as from an Acme, magnet standpoint. So we got our colors are, it kind of looks like magnet colors. So there's a lot that goes into it. And I think what's
Even
so
the
cool,
color red, like the heart, the Aztec heart, right?
You cut out the hearts, right?
Yeah, truly. They did. I mean, yeah, those are guys that didn't go all in, though. Take them all out. They're just like, we're done with you. Sacrifice. Gods will allow us to keep living. But, so then what happened next was Casey and I sat down with him, and I want everybody on the podcast to understand as we started to unfold the marketing plan and I started advising, one of the things that I told him is I said, listen, if I could go back, and Jordan Harbertson was able to go back to when we first started Mountain Ops. And Casey and I were really trying to figure out like all these relationships and partnerships. I said, one of the people that if I could go back and give equity and ownership in the company to would be Hush. That was one. I was young, I was immature, I was naive, I was early business. I didn't understand what this meant. We just, compensated people and they promoted our products and nobody got equity but the owners and the founders. And if I could go back, I told him, I said, I would give equity to those people who were willing to help us build the business that made a significant impact in the success of the business outside of just the team, And that's when I told him, I said, I know that the deal with Hush fell apart, but we need to find a way to bring that back together, because what they can do and what they will do for you will be tremendous. And for us, having them as partners will be paramount to what the success of this business can achieve together. And we brought Eric on first. Eric kind of invested his money, and this was a problem that Jordan actually created. I've been
told you guys it wasn't my fault.
Is not Jordan gets
It wasn't me.
Jordan gets all.
Trust me, Nate, we knew that.
Here's his sword. Fall on it.
Yeah, I'm going to fall on that sword. Eric and I have been over the last few years talking and dreaming. Like Eric and I, when we have conversations, it's about like all the experiences we want to have, all the places we want to go, all the things we want to experience. Like
all the sheds you want to pick
dream.
up.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go.
We dream really big. And then he offers me opportunities to go moose shed hunting in Alaska. And I'm like, sorry, dude, I don't have time to go do that. And he's like, well, cool. That was an experience.
I got to DoorDash my kids.
Yeah. Sorry, my son. Yeah, I got to DoorDash something for my kid today. But, one of the things that came about through that process was I was trying to teach and educate Eric on the process of investing and how to create structure and diversify your life and begin to create other income streams that you can diversify so that you are able to have more assets. And these assets are income assets that then pay you back. And then you have your ordinary income that you make off of if it's your job or your 100%, what you're doing every day. And then these things can make you money when you don't have to necessarily do all the work and do all these things. And so that's where we brought him in. And I think fortunately through that process, though it created some turbulence, it created an opportunity that I always had told him I wanted and believed and would have wanted to do if I could go back in history and in a time machine. I would give every one of these guys that are sitting here equity in Mountain Ops because of the partnership and the ownership that they even had in Mountain Ops, and they cared about Mountain Ops as much as we did and had such a significant impact in what the success of Mountain Ops was, as we talked earlier about. And like I said, we could go deeper into that story, but that's where, as now we've come here and we've gotten to this point, it's through that process that you talked about that even BMAC alluded to, which was the partnership that is now formed, I believe, and I echo what's been said. It's much better. And it's in a greater position because we actually had to help this homeboy restructure the company, reformalize the cap table. And I'm saying a lot of things on the podcast. People are like, I don't really know what Jordan's talking about. This is a different language. He's speaking in hieroglyphics, but it's like, it's important that from the onset of a company that we know and all here believe that Ollin is going to be and that all of us are going to be a part of, that it's set up right from the beginning with the intention of what the future holds. And I think part of that rebranding and renaming, so everybody understands, and the reason why we took him through that process is because we told him, we said, listen, if you're MagScope, you've already just defined what you are and what you'll be forever. Similar to the person that I helped when they wanted to call their company that's always what they're going to be known for. They can't, if they create a different product that's outside of those two words, it's awkward and it's off brand and they can't expand. And so his passion for wanting to help people and wanting to build these innovative products, I was like, when he came up with that, I was like, now Ollin can become what you want it to be. And you can put any amount of product that's intentional and innovative behind helping people and helping industry and helping that, so that you can expand a large breadth of product and you're not tied to one category and one space. And so that's what's cool about Nate's vision for the company, is that his vision for this now is he's thinking very big, and some of we're all privy now as owners to the ideas that he has and some of the stuff that's coming down the pipeline and some of the ideas that are coming from us that he's considering. And it's like Ollin's future is incredibly bright and it's really exciting, and all credit to Nathan and his vision and his idea and his dream and his ability, his willingness to go with all of his heart and create this has created an opportunity. And so I just want to parlay real quick into how Isaac got here. Because
he's not here just to order burritos.
This is Ollin's assistant.
Where's my burrito, dude?
They're here. Burritos are here.
Are they here?
They're here.
Wrap this thing up.
Yeah. And a quick business principle that you can extract from everything he just shared, because I think you guys mentioned that the audience loves the business side of things, and I think it's important to pull out the principles that they can apply into whatever they're doing. Know your strengths and your weaknesses, and when you have somebody, whether it's a partner, a mentor, that's an expert in a category, for example, graphic design, that's building a logo, trust his decision and just move forward. Don't get so caught up in, like, imagine if we would have spent months trying to like agree on the logo, how much further back that would have put us from production and redesign and stuff like that. And so I trusted Jordan and his vision, and literally he said it was like the funny, because I think he was working with another partner at the time that was taking so long to make a decision on a logo, and I just trusted him and we moved forward. And so yeah, take that for what you guys want, but I think it's an important business principle to pull out. Trust the people around you, make the decision. If they make a mistake, they can own the mistake. When you make a mistake, you own the mistake, but just move forward.
100%.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I want to touch on just kind of, I want to back up just a little bit, just for those who are interested in the business side of all this. Going back to that original deal where Hush was going to work with Nathan, just for you guys who are learning this process, and trust me, we're all learning through every step of our journey in business. And that first deal, just so you guys know, it had a lot of, you go through the deal and you go through what are the expectations and duties on the user agreement, who's going to do what. And Hush had a lot on its plate at that time. We were agreeing that, BMAC was confident that we can use our network to get into retail. If we wanted to do retail, we would take that on. We'd obviously use our Hush platform. We were going to be the ones to help design the website and manage the website and fulfillment through our partnership with Eagle Eye. So we had a lot of things that we were bringing to the table at that time that I think it would have worked. Like even that agreement would have worked.
Yeah.
But now we've got this agreement where we've got the help from Jordan and his brother Casey, who are going to take a lot of those things off our plate, which is just going to allow us to focus on what we're really good at. And going back to what Nathan said, build a team, trust those who are good at what they're good at, and you do, play your role and do what you're good at. Again, for those listening on the business side, right? Like we would have had a higher stake, or for those who are more into it, like more equity than what we do now. So we have a smaller piece of the pie if you look at it that way, but there's such a great team here that it just gets me so excited, because we have access to Jordan, his brother, and his network and team and everything they've learned through their journey, all the way going back to the Zealous and Zulu and whatever else, right? We've got all access to network and knowledge that BMAC has, that Casey has, that I have on branding, community, brand loyalty. Then you got Nathan, who's just a genius. Like Jordan said, like guys like Nathan don't come around often. And I can see that just working closely with him over the last year.
My wife's probably shaking her head at that. This is genius, like this kid.
But you get this team. This is the dream team if you're really thinking about it. Jordan just mentioned, like, if he could go back, he'd give us equity, which
Would have been nice.
We'll take a check if you want. We'll take. But like there's so much value on this team now with the knowledge that we have across the board on this whole thing. And again, Isaac's coming in here in a second. Like sky's the limit,
And
we've always,
our visions align, and now it's not about my slice of the pie. It's about how big can we make this freaking pie over the next
Well, Eric touched on it, but I think for the audience that's listening, you can see it in the industry, the evolution of starting your own company, and then over time, what can we bolt on to that? So I'm not going to name names, but you can just take a step back and look at people that maybe you follow or different companies from where they originally started to what they do now. There's a lot of companies that are making everything, right? So they're trying to bolt on as much as they possibly can. And it's really like so easy to see across the board, particularly those that you've maybe followed well. When we've kind of explored some of that, we've dabbled in some of the manufacturing. We've dabbled in building new product categories. And I think a good aha for us is when you start to do that, it's a lot of work. And so it starts to take away from what our passion is, what we're good at. And that was like a red flag that I think it was great. We all recognized it relatively early, where Casey and myself and Eric kind of said, okay, in a perfect world, it would be great to have some stake, our own skin in more of this stuff. However, doing it ourselves, we realized pretty soon that wasn't the best option. None of us have the core competencies to go deal with the manufacturing or engineering or designing of things. That's just not how we're wired. We're not good at it. And instead of kind of trying to like persevere down that road and just force it, we kind of stepped back and said, okay, what are some good companies or strategic partners we could work with that are great at that other stuff? And then it'll continue to allow us to do what we love, what we want to wake up and do every day. And it kind of the best of both worlds. So we stay in our lane. We know what we're great at. We can continue to pursue all the dreams we have with building this Hush brand. But at the same time, we could start to dabble in some different stuff in some different categories, but we don't have the expectations or the weight on our shoulders to have to do it all. And I think when you try to go down those rabbit holes of doing stuff that you don't love, it just takes away from what we originally built. And then we've always talked about this. Are we going to keep doing what we love and building content? Or are we suddenly going to become this manufacturer? Like, we're not manufacturers. We're just not. Do we want to build new products and have new opportunities to explore that? Absolutely. But let's do it a different way. And so this is like our first chance partnering with Nathan and with Jordan and Casey and the team that they're building to kind of have the best of both worlds. We can do what we're really good at, what we love to do, but we can also participate in trying to help grow this new entity into something that is above what we would have been able to do on our own.
Another huge reason why vision and mission is so important, because it gives you and your business direction. You're still going to make mistakes. You're still going to fail. You learn from those failures and you move forward. But when you understand what you're passionate about and your why, it's super simple when you're making a business decision. Ask yourself, does this align with my vision? Does it align with my mission? If it does, great. Let's do it. Let's make that decision and move forward. If it doesn't, it's out the door and on to the next thing.
It makes decision making very easy.
Well, I think it's a big reason why we've been so successful, the three of us, is we're all good at different things.
And I would say define success as just being partners.
Being partners, yeah.
Not even money or any of that.
Being able to wake up and do this for as long as we have is what I consider success. And like what you were talking about earlier, like not only are we able to wake up and do what we love, but we still love doing what we do.
Yep.
And that passion hasn't left. But we're all good at doing different things. Like, big reason why we brought Brian on, because he's fantastic at everything that me and Eric aren't fantastic at and can't do. But even with our little business, like we've been able to do it so well because we've been able to stay in the lane of what we're very passionate about. Brian is very passionate about the business side of it.
Yeah. And I don't want to be the face of the company in a content standpoint. Like, Eric has done an amazing job at that. And we literally told him, like, dude, go be the face of Hush. Right. And then he killed it. Did it as good as you could have ever asked for. Casey's incredible on camera. Like, these guys are great. I don't need that. I don't need to try to compete with that. I don't want that. I'll be a contributor, but I really enjoy trying to like strategize on how do we continue to do this? How do we provide for our family? How do we, make sure Matt and Logan are supported and taken care of? Like, how do we keep going down that road? And it's worked really well because we're not trying to compete for each other's strengths.
Yeah.
We're just complementing each other.
You're all working together.
Absolutely.
Kind of like the way the Wu-Tang Clan was formed.
10 Wednesday, brother.
I'm telling you, the same story. You got RZA, ODB,
Of course,
Method Man.
But now we're just like
it's harmonious.
we're expanding that, and we're bringing. We're now partners with you guys, and you guys are fantastic at things that we're not fantastic at. And I think that's why this partnership's going to absolutely crush.
Those are the best partnerships. I think when you have redundancies in a partnership, that is when you will face some turbulence or some friction with your partnership, because you're like, well, I'm doing what you're doing, or we're doing the same thing. And it's like diversifying those responsibilities and duties. It's when you three have found such a truly harmonious and symbiotic partnership, is because of what you three just literally described. And that's what I had kind of been mentoring him and telling him, as you start forming people around you, you want the smartest people in the room. You want to be the dumbest guy. And that's a thing that a lot of egotistical people won't agree with that statement I just made. They'll be like, no, I need to be the smartest person. I need to look like the smartest person. I'm like, no, I am completely content being the dumbest person in the room. I would rather be a part of people who are absolutely brilliant and are sophisticated and are efficient in what they are professional at, and have a team and a crew. Casey and I love piracy. So like a captain his ship is only as good as its crew. Like a ship is nothing more than a vessel that could float on water itself, but would crash quickly into rock or on land and go down. But with a crew and each crew member understanding his or her role and responsibility, and having a captain at the helm or multiple captains at a helm, it's so crucial to be able to have that kind of relationship and a partnership. And so I love the way you guys describe that, because as this partnership is formed, I want everybody to understand, like, every single person sitting before you is an owner of this company. And that kind of segues right into Isaac Alliman. As you guys have been hearing, each one of our...
This is a true segue. Last time we went backtrack, but this is the true segue.
This is the segue.
We're parlaying right into Isaac, the DoorDash premium guy. Freaking love that you did that. But Isaac has a deep place in every one of our hearts. And the relationship that each of us have had with Isaac, we each have a personal friendship and relationship with him, and have had the opportunity to work with him and do business with him, as he is someone who is a legend in this space and industry. He jokingly says, they know me. Well, when he says that, that's not ego. I always say to people about Isaac, if I know somebody who doesn't like Isaac, I typically don't like that person, because I'm like, that person, there's something wrong with them.
So rude, Jordan.
Because I'm sorry, I'll own it. I'm just like, how can you not like Isaac? I mean, the guy's story, his life journey deserves a whole podcast. And I think it sounds like there's one that has been done. So go back and listen to Isaac and Hush talk about his life. How Isaac got here and where he's sitting now, I think is pretty tremendous in itself, because when you're growing a business, just so everybody knows, this guy's up in Shelley, Idaho. Finally got an office, got out of the house. So he's got his own space. So he doesn't have his wife or kids bothering him too much. Not that it's a bother, but staying focused on the business.
They didn't bother to me, so that's why I had to get an office.
You hired our first customer service representative. Mm-hmm. Her name,
Trina. She's actually a cousin of mine.
Tina, so I wanted to check.
Trina.
Any of you guys that have dealt with any customer support up until this point, which hopefully hasn't been a ton, most of the issues we're running into is people not knowing optics in their phones, or us, our website not being perfect. So that's what's going on. But Trina is so good at what she does. She cares about you. If you don't hear back, follow up. She will respond to you. And we actually just made her, she's been working part-time, and we made her a full-time offer, and we're really hoping that she accepts it. She's phenomenal.
And so Nathan would come to Casey and I, and as we're talking and we're having these business meetings, he's like, when do I bring people on? And me and Casey are like, man, keep it close as long as you can before you just can't do it anymore. Like, find that breaking point, because in a business, we just see so many businesses when we're looking at investing, or businesses that have been around for a couple of years. We see so much cash that's been burned, so many bad decisions. They tried to go too big too fast before they actually got revenue or produced actual sales, because they were like, well, if we have this entire company, then we'll just be able to go do this. And it's like, well, he's been wearing all the hats like any entrepreneur has to. And he's given that one to Trina. And then it came time when we started assessing the business, and he's got a couple guys that are working on R&D and product development that we've got kind of on the side that we contract with. So we've got some outsourced
technically not
contracting.
employees, but like I said, Paul's been a huge help. We wouldn't be here without Paul. He's the one that all of our product, anything product related, Paul's been a big part of. And then obviously there's been some other support as
Shout out, Paul.
Shout out to Paul. And so we're sitting in a meeting and we're just talking about, okay, needs in the business, because we start feeling some of these growing pains and these pain points. And, you know, Nate keeps going, Jordan, when are you going to come back on social media? When are you going to like come back out of the darkness and like be you again or do your thing? You know, I need you to go out there and go to events and do this. And I was like, Nate, like I did that for Mountain Ops. That took a tremendous amount of my time and energy, and it took a lot of time away from my family. And I'm in a different place in my life now where my family is absolutely paramount. It's priority number one. Business comes absolutely second, and everything after that. And so right now I'm not going to do that. And he's just like, but I need Jordan. This is, you know, and I said, you don't need me. Let's talk through and let's think of people who we think in the space could fill a great role. Because right now what you need is to focus on the business, and we need someone to come in that can continue to help you build relationships, manage those relationships, be a strategic advisor to you on ways to how to navigate through the industry. And as we started kind of identifying,
they challenged me to come up with like to tell them, you know, what parts of the business you need help with. And I remember writing down, you know, I need help with ambassadors, you know, how to manage ambassadors, how to build our own internal guide and outfitter and pro staff, you know, our own program, you know, social media. I'm not a social media guy. I wanted someone that could help with that. Events are a huge undertaking, and we're not leveraging those to our full capacity yet. I need someone that can help with events. And I can't remember the fourth one. I think there was one other one, but
you basically see, as you outlined that, I'm looking at Casey and I start thinking of a few people, and Casey looks at me and goes, Isaac Aleman. Like check. Like the guy has literally done every single one of the things in his career. He knows how to do it. He will be an incredible advisor to you. He can come help in the business. He can help participate. And it's when he said that, I was just like, that's the guy. That's exactly who we need. And you know, so one of the things that we talked with Isaac about is he had been with Easton, and then you'd gone to Black Rifle Coffee, and Black Rifle Coffee went public. And when you're a publicly traded company, like Evan is trying to run a really tight ship, and the kind of things that CEOs have to do for publicly traded companies, I have learned more in the last 3 years than I ever knew before. And what they have to do is just, it sucks. It's crazy. A CEO of a publicly traded company, I have so much respect for. And so he's had to make a lot of tough decisions, like you know. And one of the great things was the timing and the transition of where Black Rifle was kind of repositioning the business. And Isaac was in a good position to be there, but was kind of like, I want to be part of something. I've now been a part of 2 like Fortune 500 companies. I've been part of 2 big brands, 2 big companies. And I'm in a place in my life. And I remember when you and I were talking about this over pizza, you're like, I'm in a place in my life where I really want to be a part of something that's new, something that I feel like I can really contribute to. And that is where, when Casey said that, and we called you up, and Nathan was like, dude, come join Ollin, come be part of this. It just fits so effortless, right? And so jokingly, I said, okay, so like, I just was trying to help him understand this, because he knew Isaac, but he didn't really know Isaac. And he's like,
this goes back to what I mentioned before. It's trust your partners, trust your mentors. And I trusted these guys, and it's a big decision for a company at our stage to bring on another person full time who, disclaimer, is getting paid more than me salary wise, just so you guys all know. And it's, you know, now there's pressure on my shoulders to not only provide for my family, but we're providing for another family that's relying solely on this. You know, contractors are different, where they've got other things that they're doing. If Paul wanted to step away and not do any work for us, he's got other sources of revenue. But this is somebody we're bringing on. They're becoming part of Ollin.
Just for the record, too, like Isaac was a hot commodity.
He was.
He had several offers.
oh my goodness.
He gave me a call one night. We were just finalizing the.
Before I knew you guys were finalizing your deal,
right.
I followed him to run a few by him, and I'm like, I don't know, man. What do I do? What do I do here?
And the thing was, and that just goes to credit of the valuable individual that sits among all of us, and the value that he has. That I will say this confidently, and I don't care what people think. Casey and I have talked about this at large. I think the places that he's worked and what he has done for those company, he has been grossly undervalued and underappreciated. And I'm happy to have a talk with all those CEOs and anybody at those companies. If you listen and you're part, you worked with them. Me and Casey, as his friends and people on the sidelines watching, saw an individual who we saw his worth, his value, and what he's capable of, and was hoping that others would see that themselves. And I think sometimes there were little particles that I could see where they would do it, but then they wouldn't go through with it, and they wouldn't let him do what he's capable of. They would almost hold Isaac back from being who Isaac is and what he can do. And so when the opportunity came and you accepted it, I told you, I said, I want you to know who you're getting, what he's going to do for this business, and what you're going to see. And already within like the first couple hours of him officially joining, being part of it, he called me up and was like, dude, this guy is awesome. He shows up for the photo shoot. He's already talking to all these people. And I just said, Isaac called me because he was getting lots of offers. And lots of people, when he put out his post and said thank you to Evan and to the entire Black Rifle Coffee family, who is an incredible family, an incredible company, and took very good care of you.
Yes.
A lot of people started coming, and he called me up and he was like, Jordan, I've got, can I tell the story?
Don't.
I won't mention names.
Okay, that's fine. Yes.
Tell the story. He calls me up and he's like, dude, I got to talk to you. Tried calling your brother. He didn't pick up because he calls Casey first.
It's because Casey usually is the one that picks up. That's why.
There's some truth to that. And Isaac says to me, he says, okay, Jordan, so I just negotiated the biggest salary that I've ever gotten in my life. The guy asked me for a number and I gave it to him and he just said yes. What do I do, dude? Because I told you guys I'm coming, but now this, and I looked at, I was talking to him, and I just started laughing. I was like, dude, Isaac, do you want that? And he's like, I don't know, but I've never done this before. I've never negotiated. He is finding out in real time, how valuable he is. And he's experiencing that in a moment where he's negotiating an opportunity with the business that wants him and values him too. And I just said, Isaac, there's something different here than there. And this is all I want to tell you, which is Casey and I have both talked and we've both agreed that we're going to divest our equity and ownership to give you ownership. And I said to him, the reason why I want to do that for you is because if I could have given that to you at Mountain Ops, I would have. But we never had that opportunity. And we've never really been able to work together other than in circumstances that have been somewhat me working together with you like we did at Easton, always being friends and working in the industry and working around each other and benefiting and helping and connecting and networking. And I said, it is time for you in your life to be an owner and to have ownership and to have an opportunity to make a significant difference in this business that Nathan has built and this vision that he has, and to contribute to that vision and to participate in the ways that I know as a friend and somebody who loves you that you can do effortlessly. Like I told Nathan, I said, at this stage in the business, it's important to find individuals that you can rely on, that you aren't having to spend all your calories trying to almost train them up or teach them. And I said, somebody like Isaac is somebody who's going to come in and is just going to run, and you won't have to worry about him. He'll call to check, but he's just going to go and he's just going to get it done. That's just how he's wired. And so I jokingly said, if you remember, I said, listen, with the number one pick, or we called it the number 3 pick, but the number 1 pick in the outdoor industry draft, Ollin has officially drafted.
Hilarious.
Freaking dope.
Isaac Aleman to Ollin. And so it was only fitting because of yours and mine love and adoration for the GOAT, Michael Jordan, that we get you with even color scheme.
Color scheme
fits right into an all-in jersey number
and the
3.
kind disoriented logo.
That's right. We're gonna get them to fix that.
So for those listening real quick, so Jordan just presented that you're not watching. He presented him with a basketball jersey. It says Ollin on the front. It's number 3 for being the 3rd pick.
Yes, because they said I was going to be the first employee, and I said no, I want to be number 3.
And technically,
and they said it was number
3. Yeah.
And he said why? I go, because Michael Jordan was drafted number 3.
Ironically enough, Isaac's rocking the Jordan 1 Low Chicago's today. looks
Your divine intervention, man.
looks perfect.
This is so cool.
But just so you guys know, Isaac is not an employee. He is an employed by Ollin, but he is an owner. He is earning ownership. He's an owner with all of us.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. He's earning it. So you're gonna be an owner over the next. No, I'm just kidding.
25 years.
Pretty wild, man. It's been cool to kind of reflect down memory lane, look back at some of the big events that kind of brought us all together, and the fact that we're sitting here today in this new exciting partnership with we have with Ollin collectively, and it'll be really cool to see in the next 5 years what happens, where this takes us, what kind of new products that can come to market and be disruptive, and what kind of new opportunities and new relationships can be formed from it. But love hearing everybody's entrepreneurial stories. Like I've got a big passion for that side of storytelling. Is kind of hearing how do people start businesses? You know, for working in corporate America for a lot of years, working for other people, there's always a bit of an intimidation factor of like, can I actually run my own company? Can I be an owner of my own business? And I think there's a barrier of entry to get through that. And thankfully, with the partnership that Casey and Eric and I have been able to form over the last, pushing 10 years now, it's doable. It's there. And I think we've shared a lot of stories over the years, but if you have a passion, a dream, an idea that's on the back burner that you've always wanted to pursue, I'd really encourage you, as would anybody on this panel here, to go chase it. And it might take time. Good things take time, like Nathan said. And you're going to have to make some sacrifices, like Jordan said. You're going to have to put in, after your traditional job, that energy and effort towards your passion to hopefully one day make it your actual primary source of revenue, right? Like to be your own boss, to do your own thing. And it doesn't have to be in the hunting industry. You could go any way you think of it from a small business ownership, but I really would encourage you to challenge yourself and go do it. I can tell you, and I think anybody here would say this, but waking up every day and doing something you love is really the most incredible thing. Not having to report to some other person's business or company and just doing it on your own accord is a really powerful thing. So if you have those ideas, what are you waiting for? Let's go chase them. Let's figure that out.
Yeah, just going back to Nathan's story of him having the vision and then him literally waking up and going and drawing that on a piece of paper, like it could have stopped there very easily.
Yeah.
And we hear these stories all the time. And I hope you guys appreciate this podcast. We just wanted to sit down, talk about our partnership with Ollin a little bit more. And but we always love like opening the doors to our business to you guys, kind of showing you the behind the scenes. That's pretty much what the vlog is every week. But we hear stories from you guys like, oh, I'm thinking about starting a YouTube channel. I'm thinking about filming my hunts. Like, what are we waiting for? You know, like you're gonna go through a lot of a learning curve. You're gonna make a lot of mistakes. But if you only just sit and think about it, that's all it's gonna be, is a thought. And Nathan could have very easily done that and just had a thought, wrote down on paper, and that's it. Well, he acted on that, and here we all sit together as partners now.
So as we start wrapping this thing up, you can use the Hush discount code. It will save you 10% plus free shipping. That's going to be active from here on out. So you can find it anywhere on our social. It'll be in our YouTube description boxes, or just, again, use the Hush discount code and you can go get yourself one of the new Ollin Snapshot systems. We do have a lot of cool stuff coming down the pipe.
Yes, we do. Innovative products that we're excited to reveal to you guys in the near future. We've got our bino adapters that we've been working on. We were hoping to launch those on our 1 year anniversary in July. It's taken a little bit longer dials in, but those are coming in the next couple of months. And depending on when this launches, we are going to be running an anniversary sale for, I think, 2 weeks. So it'll be the longest sale we've ever ran. And code HUSH will match whatever discount the company decides to run, whether it's 25, 20%. And so same code HUSH will also match that. But got to hear a little bit from Isaac before we completely wrap this up.
Absolutely.
Dude, just know that we're all super pumped to have you on. And for me, I'm just excited to develop even more relationship with you. So
I can't thank you guys enough. And I don't want to get too much into it, but you guys have been with me through the darkest times of my life. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. If you guys go back and check out the podcast we have with Isaac, he goes into a lot of detail about how he got into the outdoor industry, how he got into bow hunting, and definitely, what he's alluding to. is some tough times for their family, unfortunately.
From losing a job to losing a child, and you guys have been there every time.
So Isaac and his wife, unfortunately, lost their daughter Melissa earlier this year, and it's been tough. It's been tough, but I can tell you the thing that came out of it that's been just so overwhelming is the support that he and his family have received from so many wonderful people in our hunting community. We've said it before. We'll say it again. It is truly the best community out there, but people have embraced them emotionally, spiritually, financially, and helped them navigate through a super difficult time. And, anybody that's lost somebody close to them, particularly a child or a parent, it's indescribable. And I know it's a process, but I believe
thank you guys.
Isaac and I have had a lot of conversations, and this is kind of just a new, fresh professional start. It's the right time to do it.
Yep. And a quote I want to leave everyone with is one of my favorite quotes that I want put on my, my headstone. It's going to say, it's not what you know. It's not who you know. It's who knows you. And there's the quote from Isaac that I don't know where I heard it, but I remember it stuck with me, and that's how I got to where I am now. And it's amazing. So thank you guys all so much.
Yeah, thank everybody here. It's a wild ride, this stuff, coming from myself who just considers himself some punk kid who likes antlers to sitting on a stage with these guys and moving forward with business and building my dreams, and everyone here contributing to my dreams. And it's crazy, sky's the limit. Don't count yourself out. If you got something, you're thinking about, pursue it, because you never know where it's going to end. But if you give up, ends there, I guess. So thank you guys for all the support. We try to say it, every chance we get. But the people who watch our videos, buy our merchandise, support our partnerships, use discount codes, view, anything, just subscribing to our channel, it really helps us and allows us to live this dream that we're living. So like we said in the podcast early on, none of this is possible without the followers, the customers, and those who support us. So from the bottom of my heart and everyone here on this panel, thank you.
Absolutely. Maybe we'll do this more than once every 6 months, It's a new start. So stick around. Hopefully you can hear more of these podcasts. I think we got everybody on board to do more of this stuff. We've got a lot of stories to share, from hunt stories to just more business stuff to cool guests we could have. It's really endless. We just got to commit to it. So our apologies for the delay in production on the podcast, but new year, new time. Let's do this
podcast. It'll make up for that.
I was going to say, we'll get this podcast.
Yeah.
And then it's like, we're about to go right into hunting season. Guys, look forward to the annual Hush podcast.
Yeah.
Coming to
Every
you
June.
Every June.
Let's go eat some burritos.
The Hush podcast.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks everybody.
Thanks for watching, guys.
See you guys.
All in.
It's time to go all